the Single Family Design Board for April 25th, 2022. May I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Colas,
Here.
Board Member Arcalian,
Here.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Here.
Board Member Klein,
Here.
and Board Member Butisha.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for the public discussion. Do we have anyone who would like to speak?
We did not receive any general public comment for the meeting today. Thank you.
Actually, Chair Miller, I believe we did receive general public comment that was distributed in advance of the meeting. It was a written correspondence.
All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay, moving on to item B, approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board for April 11th, 2022. May we bring them up to the board so we can go through the items, please? And the screen isn't on, I don't know.
And Chair Miller, I can go ahead and go through the minutes.
All right, thank you.
So item 136 Rincon Vista Road was granted project design approval and continued indefinitely to the consent calendar with comments and findings. And they were just generally the summary of the findings that are applicable. Action by Arcalian, second by Klein. Item 2650 Rockwood Drive was continued to the staff hearing officer with comments. Action by Klein, seconded by Arcalian. Oh, what is that? Item 3, 2944 Valencia Drive was granted project design approval and continued indefinitely to consent with comments. Action by Motisha, seconded by Klein. Item 4, 549 La Marina Drive was continued indefinitely to the full board with the comment that the board finds the swimming pool acceptable. Action by Motisha, seconded by Brentlinger. And item 5, 2315 Edgewater was continued indefinitely to the full board with comments.
All right, thank you. Hearing no changes or comments, may I have a motion to pass the minutes, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Colas,
I abstained. I wasn't present for that meeting.
Board Member Arcalian,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Butisha.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
right.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item C, approval of the consent calendar for April 18th, 2022. Can we go through the items, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. This consent calendar was reviewed by Chair Miller and Board Member Klein. Item A, 1709 Bath Street was granted project design approval and final approval with a comment and findings. Item B, 1335 West Valerio Street was granted project design approval and final approval with findings. And that concludes those minutes.
All right, thank you very much. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. May I
I
have a
second
second? All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Arcalian,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to today's consent for April 25th, 2022. May we go through the items, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. The consent calendar from this morning was reviewed by Chair Miller and Board Member Klein. And item A, 3405 Sea Ledge Lane was granted approval of review after final as submitted.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move to approve.
All right, may I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Board Member Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Alcalas,
Yes.
Board Member Arkelian,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Mutisha.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Ms. Pilar, do we have any of those?
Thank you, Chair Miller. Ms. Coquinto has one announcement, and I'll have one follow-up announcement.
Thank you, Chair Miller and board members. I just wanted to announce that beginning May 1st, we will, for our full board meetings, we will be accommodating remote public comment.
Great.
So that will be through the Zoom platform. It'll be very similar to how we've operated. So we'll most likely allow people who are attending via Zoom to raise their hand, and we'll accommodate that. Then that gives a little bit more time for people to fill out speaker slips in the room, and then that way we can hear from more people. So I do know that the general public comment today was responding to that. We are starting on May 1st because we had to update our notices, our agenda language, and do a lot of the prep work to make those changes. So it will not be available until then. Thank you.
Are you in charge of that?
The whole department is. It's a
Okay,
it's a
great.
collaborative effort. So
was gonna say, I
with
wish you
admin,
luck.
staff, planning, and of course our managers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And my announcement was just as a reminder for the board, when you're speaking, just to turn on your microphone. It should light up green. So, yeah, just a general reminder to do that.
Okay, thank you. And I don't believe we have any subcommittees reports
May I,
at this time.
may I make
course.
some comments about, about a person that made a presentation 2 weeks ago, I think of Mr. Trent.
Oh, yes.
Made some comments about metal roofs and garage door.
Yeah, transparent garage doors, yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a great, the reason I'm following up on it, because myself and I think it was Jonathan Ziegler and you, Brian, were on a subcommittee a couple of years ago about those subjects. And granted, I think metal roofs and garage doors don't belong in certain areas where they are indeed either don't fit architecturally or neighborhood-wise, or they light up the area that does not want to be lit up. But I think Mr. Trent was also pushing toward allowing those ideas and architectural things to,
Aesthetic issues.
yeah, to allow them in areas where it doesn't affect, like glass railings don't affect where the sun doesn't shine, on buildings that face north, and the sun never reflects off those. And also garage doors with glass in them where they're totally hidden by. And I think this board and lots of boards have a tendency to move with the flow of our predecessors, and we kind of deny them because that's what they did before us. But I don't think they need to do that in places where they're acceptable and they don't affect the quality of what we're trying to pass in our guidelines.
Mr. Chair, through you to Board Member Motisha, I just want to let you know that after that meeting, I followed up with Mr. Trent, and it was just the nature of his request was a review after final, which is not an appealable action.
Yeah.
So I gave him another option should he wish to bring the idea back to the board and have due process so that the full board could review it. So he has the option to pursue those elements for you all to weigh in. should he wish. So just to follow up on his
Well,
interest.
the biggest reason I bring it up is, well, not the biggest reason is, but I'm an architect and I like those architectural details, the metal roofs and the glass doors in the garage. But I understand that they don't belong where they shouldn't be.
Well, if
Yeah.
I could follow up.
Go ahead.
Regarding the metal roof, I do recall we did have one neighbor send us pictures of a reflection that she really didn't like.
Yeah.
So I think that's an open debate thing.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, I have another wrinkle with regarding, he's a friend of mine, he's a personal friend of mine who called me about this and was very passionate about it. And I said, and I actually encouraged to get and speak about it. And I also tried to recruit him and said, you're very passionate, you should look at being on one of our design review boards. So anyway, so there you go.
Thank you.
Mr. Trent, yes.
So can I speak to that for just a second?
Yes,
Because I
please.
know it was in response to a decision I made on the consent calendar, and I did actually watch that portion of the meeting,
Yes.
even though I was absent. So just in general, I feel like there needs to be a broader conversation about night sky ordinance and dark sky ordinance and what we're seeing come through our board. The other night, it was about 9:30 p.m. I was out in Mission Canyon. I was walking around the open space at Sheffield Reservoir, and there was a home that had undergone a remodel with a lot of glazing, sitting right on top of a knoll, and it was an absolute beacon of light, huge. And we're seeing more and more of those types of projects as people are gravitating towards this mid-century modern, clean,
Yes.
glass, steel architecture. And I'm a purist. I don't mind any type of architecture as long as it's done well, really. And so I don't have an issue with that, but I think we need to understand the cumulative effect of these projects on our community in terms of the dark sky ordinance. Because if we have cutoff requirements for outdoor lighting, and yet we're allowing these huge curtain walls to go up, then we're defeating our own intent. And so I don't know what the forum is for that, but I think there needs to be a broader conversation so that we can make adjustmts to guidelines or figure out how to deal with that light pollution that we're going to see more and more
Yes.
in town. So
Well said.
I would be interested to know how we could approach that from a guideline standpoint.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, I think this board was set up not to have a black and white decision. We do have gray decisions, and that gray decision is deciding, and we do have yes and no over those gray decisions. So we can allow that to happen and move in, and I hope we move in that direction.
Chair Miller, I want to avoid getting into a discussion on this. We
Yes.
can.
It's not agendized, so
yeah,
let's move on to
absolutely.
our first
Thank
item.
you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to item number 1, 1384 Shoreline Drive. We have representatives for that project. Please come forward. Welcome. And then turn on your, yes.
Hi, Board. Chair Miller, rest of the board. Adam Sharkey with Blackbird Architects. This is property owner Debbie Perez.
Thank you. And before you start, let me read into the record the project that's before us. It's a proposal to demolish the existing single-unit residence and construct a new 2-story single-family residence with an attached garage. The project includes associated site and landscape improvements, a new pool and pool amenity structure. The proposed total of 2,499 square feet on a 6,191 square foot lot is 91% of the maximum required floor-to-lot area ratio. Planning Commission granted approval of a coastal development permit was granted on April 7th, 2022. Project design approval and final approval are requested. Neighborhood preservation findings are required. Project was last reviewed on February 14th, 2022. Can we bring up the minutes from the previous meeting, please?
And I would like to ask staff if the screen could be used here. Front.
Yeah, there's an on switch. Over here. There. Oh, no, no.
And Chair Miller, the minutes are on the screen. So this was the motion from the February meeting. Continued to the Planning Commission for return to the full board with the comment that the proposed project is compatible with the neighborhood and is aesthetically appropriate.
All right, thank you. Traditionally, I've had someone on the board recite those, but I think it would be okay if you would like to recite them, that we could.
Just this once. Okay.
Very good. All right, if you could present your project, and since the minutes are pretty short,
Sure, thanks, Chair Miller.
basically show us your working drawings.
Yep, that's what we've got. So appreciative of the board's time. Our last visit was prior to Planning Commission, but was the second review we'd had with you all. We'd gotten some useful comments from our first review that we'd incorporated, and that made for, I think, a brief minutes of going on to the Planning Commission. So I'll jump around a little here just because they're working drawings. There's a lot of sheets that I don't think are really relevant, and then we'll be available to answer questions. So the site plan, if we go, I think it's page 15. Let's see, 15. Here we go. And zoom in a little. 1384 Shoreline Drive, single-family residence, a redo of the existing structure. The existing structure had the garage slightly in the front yard, so we're moving it back. We're having a residence in nearly the same location, a small backyard with a little pool. I think the only thing there's really been no changes in the site plan other than I think we were 1 foot into the 6 foot rear yard easement for overhead power. We've moved that just to not have to do a lot of coordination with Edison. You're allowed to do that apparently, but the paperwork trail is intense. So we've shifted, same size pool, just 1 foot further from the property line since last time. Let's go on to fencing. We looked at this last time, but we've updated, just showing, zoom out. Privacy fencing, I know there's been, through the original comments and things, there was items to remove fencing at the front yard. So at the front yard interface to Shoreline Drive in the park, there's no fencing proposed. There's low fencing on either side in the kind of front yard area, and then privacy fencing along the sides and back that works well for both the owners and from what we've heard from neighbors as the desire for these sort of smaller lots with active backyards. We are, nearly all of the site walls and fencing that exist are on the neighbor's property, so those will all remain. So we're adding a new kind of privacy fence inboard of that. Our details are here. It's a low fiber cement board down that can be adjacent to grade, and then a Core-10 metal panel that gets a natural patina as the upper, and then there's, we'll see in the landscape plan, but there's vines planted along this fence so that it can grow along the fence and be a very landscape-based privacy fence in the backyard. Hardscape, page 13. This is, let me zoom out a little bit, nearly identical to what was before. So some integral color concrete with a sand cast finish that gets a kind of sandy and saw cut joints for a kind of a clean, elegant, slightly modern look. And then we have some, and that's at the patio, this front low patio, the back around the pool. And then we're breaking up the concrete and having gravel in between to try and get as much permeability where it's not going to lead to gravel getting into the pool or other items. So that's in the front driveway area and at the sort of rear side area, which is the kind of circulation access to this very small little pool changing area. Landscape, page 11 and 12. So there's an irrigation plan. It's all drip. There's it's a very modest ornamental drought-tolerant natives that kind of plant up against the low and high fence areas at the back. There's some low native drought-tolerant grasses up at the front, and a little bit of ornamental planting. Gravel along the sides for permeability, but not a lot of needed maintenance in the side yard area that's sort of behind the front privacy fence, and then again vines planted along the fencing at the sides and back. Irrigation's all drip. Let's see, then the house. So we'll go to 22. This is the working drawing floor plan. The layout is very, very similar to what you saw before. So a connected set of living, dining, kitchen areas with a good sort of view orientation to the front living space and a good connection to this back terrace down to the private backyard. Small, compact, trying to minimize circulation for a few bedrooms, and then a stair and a small landing and second story element that brings natural light down into the middle of the plan and allows you, I'll jump forward to the upper level plan. We've got some RCPs and things in the way first here. So a stair, a kind of open stair and open to below area that lets natural light in, a small, I think this is like 9 by 13 foot kind of landing and storage to just help support this uncovered outdoor roof deck that's sort of at the south and kind of the best area to kind of overlook the park. The roof plan, we'll go to 27. So we have a metal hip roof. We have sort of 3 roof elements, the small second story landing area element, the medium height, then sort of main volume living, dining, kitchen, and then the side lower back bedroom zone. All those hips kind of work we'll see in the elevations on trying to get this careful massing to give a appropriate sort of look to the front Shoreline Drive face. So we have the lower garage at grade with, it has the low then sort of upper roof deck area because it's open for the garage, which is from grade. The rest of the house is up 2 feet. We have our kind of living room view window, front door area. There's the little, this brings in south and east light into that landing area to cast light down the back of the house towards the pool. This is like an accordion door set to give good flow from the main living, dining, kitchen out to the back. Some fairly standard bedroom windows. If we look at the side, there's living and kitchen window areas, the garage, which has no windows on its side to the neighbor, and then on the other side, so this is the living and kitchen, and then on the other side, these are the bedroom and bathroom windows. This is the little pool changing area that has a little window next to its door, which faces east. If we look at the sections, let's go to maybe 4.2. This is, zoom in a touch. There's a number of sections to call out all the various details, but in basic area, what we were looking at in that massing, so we've got the garage that's at grade, we have the uncovered roof deck above it, we've got the open stair up to the landing, that's what's bringing in some of that natural light, and then this is the bedroom set. We have a little mechanical well area up that's shielded with this parapet wall, similar to how the parapet wall comes up somewhat for the front roof deck. Zoom out. Other sections kind of cut through the various other parts of the structure. I'll jump to the details. So we have the full set of details, the basic ones I think that often are the roof. So we have a pretty standard 1.5 and 12 metal roof. We've got a 2-foot boxed in, so we're not seeing exposed structure on the eaves. And an integrated gutter, so it's not sort of looking like a tacked on element, but it kind of works with the detailing of the metal roof and fascia. At the front, where we have the clear story windows above the view windows, we have a little eyebrow kind of roof here, which gives some shade on that south-facing front, and that has an integral gutter with it. Jump ahead. We have our standard These are aluminum window systems. We like to do those with a block, so it's a mid set, so you're not getting a front flat face where the glass is recessed from the edge. The exterior material palette, we have a mix of integral color plaster and stained wood for that kind of, you can see on that front elevation to try and break up a little bit of the mix of materials. That's, I think, the basics. Happy to jump back to areas as needed for questions.
All right, thank you very much. Did we get any questions from the public or comments or feedback?
No, I don't believe that we had any public comment on this item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm bringing it back to the board for questions, so I'll just go down the list. Vice Chair Claus, do you have any questions, please?
Just a couple. Can you tell me what the distance back is of the roof deck from the side property line, please?
Good question. Let's see. Let's jump to this.
Between my eyes and the multiple screens, it's really hard to see. I'm like, I don't know if I need my glasses or if I don't, or if I just need to get closer to the screen.
I believe from the western, that's the roof overhang. Let's look
It's
at
from
that.
the east, I think it's the eastern property line, Mr.
From the
Sharkey.
eastern property line, I think we're about 20 feet, because I think the garage is a 20-foot width, and that's more than 6 feet from the setback. So we're sticking into that a bit, but we're also have the whole. I don't think we can scale off this, but I'm thinking right around 20 feet from this eastern face of the second story element to the side property
Okay,
line.
but from the roof deck, you're just at
Oh, sorry, the
setback
roof deck,
at 6
yes.
feet?
Sorry, it's a 6-foot side and rear yard setback, and we're a couple inches more on all sides. I think it's like 6'3".
Okay. And then, can you tell me what the plate height is at the, I'll call it the top of the stairs? It'd be at that second floor.
Yeah, let's go to the
Landing.
sections. So we went and made some adjustments to plate heights from our first to our second review. Oops, let's go to the 4.2 because that shows it, I think. So the plate height on the landing, so the landing, because we put it over the garage, we were able to get the entire second floor as low as possible. So the landing is only 8 feet above the finished floor of the house because it doesn't directly stack. It stacks over the garage. So from the finished floor to the landing, it's 8 feet. From the landing to the plate height of the upper, that's 8'6".
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I had is, and I couldn't read it on your details, but thank you for having the details, was what the material is on the underside of the boxed-in eaves. I don't know if it's
Yes.
plaster to match the walls or if it's a wood material.
It's
or-
like a Den's glass that would have a skim coat and then painted. It wouldn't match the walls. It would be a little bit lighter.
Okay, great. Those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board Member Arkalian, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any questions, please?
I do, thanks. And I'm not sure if this is a question for staff or for the applicant here, but I noticed that in the Planning Commission conditions of approval, there's a requirement for tree protection measures in general and then during construction as a precondition to our approval. So I wonder, are you shaking your head yes? Does that approval exist, or is that design plan in existence?
So the only tree that's being protected and what that's referencing is the palms that are in the right of way.
Yeah.
Yes, and the project does include protection measures for that tree or those trees in the front.
Okay. So are you familiar with the planning?
Yes,
department
yes.
conditions? So you're confident that.
I wrote them, so.
Okay.
Well, you caught my attention. Okay, that's great. And then, forgive me if we went over this last time, but are the colors presented here as is, your color palette as formally proposed?
Yes, and we also submitted, I don't know if we need to pull it up, but this is the, it's a
bring it.
little funny with the printer and interior lights, but this is
Sometimes
the
they-
general color material board that we submitted as a single PDF.
Pardon me, if we could ask City TV to, if you center the image underneath? Or is there a paper plan or no?
That has to rotate somehow?
Yeah, City TV can, if they could turn it.
Yes, actually, I was going to say, Mr. Sharkey, in your folder,
Yep.
there should be,
This.
yeah.
Oh, wow, look at that.
So we have the two options. We have overhead TV for any physical materials,
Okay,
but we
we're
also
well
do
covered
have it
here.
on the screen.
Now, this is not a question of enough information, but make sure they match in the colors like
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
That's, yeah, we should.
so.
So that's the general, I forgot to mention, the exterior lighting is shown on this, and it's in the plans. It's just a cutoff downlight. Then we have a couple low down landscape lights just in the little planter area.
It's interesting to look at the color rendering there.
Yes.
The rendering index between the two. 'cause
Exactly.
It looks so much cooler on the screen than it does on the.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Okay, board member, did that, and,
Just one clarification, we've got the standing seam metal roof on this then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it's a gray, and I think the only, we notice as well that sometimes the printouts versus the digital is close to the intent, because it's sometimes the printer and or other makes things look, with the grays, it makes them look muddy and brown, but the intent is for more gray.
So we should be looking here.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Screen's
I'm
a better
sorry,
ref-
just a reminder, could you please speak into the microphone? Because it's a little inconsistent when people are watching on City TV.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's it.
okay, thank you. All right, board member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, did you point out the stormwater BMPs that you guys are using?
I didn't, but we have them, and we looked at them last time. We showed them to the Planning Commission. I can pull those up. Let me get back to project plan. So we're at Tier 3. So Ashley and Vance is the civil engineers. In order to comply and not have a large bioretention basin in the front, which we did not want, aesthetically or use-wise, we have a chamber that's under the front driveway apron. So that is a half, oh, you can kind of, let's see, that's the erosion control here. So if you look at the lower left, there will be like a 4-foot deep, 4-foot wide channel basically running right here, not under the structure. And that has then this half dome that's a plastic drivable, fully traffic rated. It gets backfilled with gravel, and all the roof runoff from downspouts and things are directed to that, and that has an open bottom that allows percolation back into the site. So that, in a combination with that and permeable pavement, has been the approach for compliance.
Great. And then can you just review the material for the perimeter fence? I think it was on the material board, but it was,
Yes.
I think
So that's,
they didn't
let me,
match.
it should match where it's a, I'll jump to those details. It's, the top is a PBR, so it's a ribbed Core 10 metal panel. So that's the top part, so it runs horizontally. And then if you look at the details, so that's, you can kind of see that's this surface. And then the base, where if it gets close to grade, we have a couple different conditions around the site, but we have you can see it here. We have just a fiber cement panel that's at the base that can take ground contact in areas of the planters.
great. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, I have a couple. On, how close is, show us that right there. That's what I want to see. Your deck. Oh, you moved.
Whoa, all right, I was just trying to.
Sorry, you had what I wanted to question up a little bit. Your deck is on the lower right-hand corner right there above the garage. That
View
whole
deck,
area,
yep.
right? What is opposite on the house that's to the right of that, to the east of that? What is that right there? What?
That is the, this is a 2-story. We can maybe see it from the elevations. They have a deck that runs north-south, that runs along this eastern side. I believe
Second-story deck that they have?
they have a 2nd-story deck that they have there, as well as one over here
So you're
that's,
basically looking at their deck, and they're looking at your deck.
I think the definite distinct intent is to look towards the park and bluff, and they have the same condition of a deck that looks towards the park and bluff, and then they have a full in essence, along the entire length of our side. So,
Very good. Okay, that answers my question. And one other question on the, I don't think it's the roof plan, but the sheet before the roof plan shows the roof in the second story.
trying to get to that. Hold on a sec.
I was wondering what, right? Oop, missed it. One more. Back one. Let's go back one. No, go forward.
Sorry, that's the
there.
RCP of the first floor. Then we have the
Yeah, I'm
second.
looking to find out what is, you had a shaded area on the west slope of that
Oh.
roof.
Yes, that's the area we need to indicate for solar.
Where, to the
That would
right
be
there.
Yes, so
That is
this
solar right there on the northwest.
on this
side.
this side that faces west is where we intend to have the required solar for the project.
Okay. I'm not a engineer, so I'll accept that. That's all my questions. Thank you.
A couple questions. The fencing material around the house. So what's the existing fencing material from the adjacent neighbors? What do they have as fencing? And
There's some. Let's go to the fencing plan. There's a couple different materials that will
And-
stay on the neighbors. So in the back on this side is a block wall that
is it like CMU?
yeah,
Or?
painted CMU.
Got it.
On the back, along the back property line, is a unpainted CMU wall that
Okay.
will remain. On this side is a mix of a kind of a slump stone wall in the back, and then some lattice and wood fencing above that. And this has a high kind of vine encrusted whole kind of existing fence area. Once it gets along the side of the house, there's an existing wood fence with then lattice above that and vine covered. And then at the front, this has a low CMU wall that we're kind of wrapping up and over, and then this is open.
So the fencing you're proposing, I'm just kind of, you're intending it to have plants growing on it, or
Yeah,
what's
so
it look like? What does it actually look like?
so it
It's kind of
um,
a strange elevation. It looks like
it looks kind of
skin or something.
rust. It has a natural patina, so it's a grade of stainless steel, so it can't rust through. So it doesn't rust or spall off. It has an initial rust patina that forms, which is sort of a natural, depending on it's actually based on the air content. So some places it gets a little more
Do you
greenish.
have an actual photograph of it somewhere that
In our-
it's happened before?
Yeah, it's on a number of projects, like the one down at the corner at Garden
Do you have
Street.
one on the?
Well, let me see. I
happen
know our last plans, we might have had a reference image with that. I think there's a fence photo we had put in. Let's see. Yeah, there. So I'll zoom in on that.
There's another way where you can create a box and then it blows. I don't know how they. Okay.
So this has low plant spraying kind of up against it. It's not shiny. The various sort of lines. Sometimes that can be done in full corrugated, where it's like a sine wave profile, and that's usually has more of an agricultural feel. This has a little bit more modern lines that come out, and then similar to ours is a planter down at the base of it that then would have this kind of low gray
The
fiber cement
board
base.
form concrete base.
Yeah, this has a board form concrete. We're not actually retaining anything on our project because
Got it.
there's walls, so we're just having a low fiber cement
And it's
base.
6 feet high.
8 feet on the sides and back, and then 42-inch at the front.
Really?
The existing walls on all the neighboring properties are higher, in essence,
they?
higher than the 8 feet. Yeah, with vines and other elements.
So this is sort of being built in front of those walls.
Yes.
Got it. Do you have a picture of the next door neighbor's house? That's you're referencing the one with the balcony. It had the large balcony. Do you
Yeah,
have
I
a
think in
photograph of
this
that house?
older set we had neighborhood photos. Let me try and pull that up. That's okay. Yeah. There's a little
I think
view of
photos
it
are all
from-
at the start of the plan set.
Oh, is that the house, that yellow thing?
Yeah. Considering, I think we have other ones in the neighborhood photos, but this is probably a pretty good one of the front. That's the neighboring house, and that's that front deck. It's kind of, it has a white metal
Well, that's
roof
an architectural gem, isn't it?
and a white kind of cream stucco color. And maybe the others. I think that's, yeah.
And that kind of, I saw that real 3D, that's a picture of the house in the previous iteration.
Yeah, that was our last, I think, visit with you where we had shown the massing as part of the design development.
Great, got it, thank you. Well, those are my questions, so I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Collas, do you have any comments, please?
I would like direction from staff because I was absent at the previous meeting and I made the fatal error of not reviewing this project because I frankly confused it with another one of Blackbird's projects on Shoreline because you've had several come before us lately.
Sure.
So I just need direction as to whether it's appropriate for me to make comments or not.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collas. So you're limited to questions only. You can't provide comments if you haven't reviewed the materials.
So I will forego my comments.
Darn, you have a nice list there. Okay.
These were my questions, they weren't comments.
Okay, good. All right, we'll move on. Board Member Eric Helling, do you have any comments, please?
I do. So after revisiting the fence details, I'm concerned about the neighborhood compatibility of, this rust finish, solid metal panels, no openings at all, going all the way up. I do like the vines, kind of a little more greens, but I do want to hear what the other board members have to say about whether the panels are compatible. Aside from that, I believe the project, the building is aesthetically appropriate for the neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Bettlinger, do you have any comments, please?
I think it's also aesthetically appropriate for the neighborhood, and I appreciate the evolution of the project and the work you've done on that. As far as the fence goes, I accept the fence as proposed. I'm looking at it more or less as a shield against the CMU next door. And in that regard, it's going to be what you are looking at, not what your neighbor's looking at. So in that respect, it's strictly an internal view and, have at it.
Okay.
So those are my only comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
I agree. I think that the project fits within the neighborhood aesthetically, and the size, bulk, and scale I think works really nicely within the neighborhood as we reviewed at concept. I could go either way with the fencing too. I think it's fine in having a vine grow on it. It's really going to just be a green screen eventually, depending on maintenance there. And those are my comments.
Great, thank you. Board Member Motisha.
Yes, I like the evolution of what you've gone through the past 3 or 4 meetings with us, and it's turned into a nice small house. We could have a client that puts a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house on that lot, and then this is much smaller, much nicer. I think, just to make one other comment, I'm looking at the front elevation right now. If you made the roof of the second story the same color, the black, instead of making it gray, it would reflect more of what that elevation looks like. See, I'm looking at a dark roof over the, sorry, it went,
What you did.
somebody kicked the,
Some needs to move the mouse.
there it is. The roof over the great room is dark in this elevation, and the roof over the second story entrance to the deck is gray. And it just aesthetically would look better if they were the same color.
And they are the same color.
I
That
know
was
they are.
merely for depth, but totally point taken.
Yeah.
Understood.
Okay, no, I like the project. I think it meets our guidelines, and I will totally, yeah, I like it. Thank you. I get to say I like it if we agree with our guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had a little concern about compatibility issues with the fence. That's why I wanted to understand what you were building the fence for. But it's a hodgepodge of fences, it sounds like, so there's no real consistency. I do want to say that the board form concrete, the siding, I went to a winery this weekend, and it seems to be people are remodeling, and it's like everything has this pattern. It's interesting. So, but yeah, I support the project. I think it's going to be, it's appropriate for the neighborhood. The size, bulk, and scale is appropriate. The style is very consistent with that neighborhood. So yeah, I can support it too. And with that being said, you are here for project design approval and final approval. If someone would like to draft a motion for that, or if we want to go back for something else, what?
Thank you, Chair Miller. I just wanted to remind the motion maker to include the neighborhood preservation findings in your motion. And then, Ms. Gu, can you actually go back to the staff computer so we can have those on the screen?
So would someone like to draft a motion?
I'll give it a go.
Oh, you can't, that's right. Go
Yep.
for it. Yay, congratulations.
So I move that we grant design approval and final approval and the neighborhood preservation findings. And so in that regard, we will declare that the consistency in appearance and the proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed development is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and the neighborhood. And the proposed buildings and structures are designed with quality architectural details. The proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline or hillside, which does not apply in this case. And furthermore, the proposed project does not include the removal or significantly impact any designated specimen tree, historic tree, or landmark tree, because I understand the palm tree is not any of those things, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And furthermore, the public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The project generally complies with the Good Neighbor guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. And finally, the development, including proposed structures and grading, preserves significant public scenic views of and from the hillside.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a second? All right, may I have any more comment? All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Okay. For project design approval and final approval, Board Member Miller,
Yes?
Board Member Colaux,
Abstain?
Board Member Arkalian,
Yes.
Board Member Brinklinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Morticia.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your house.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Thank you, Board.
All right, thank you.
just have to build it.
Yeah, that was a fun part. You're welcome. Is there a 10-day appeal period for this project?
Mr. Chair Miller, can you announce the 10-day appeal period?
And there
I'll
is
go
a
to that.
10-day appeal period for this project. We don't do paper anymore, it's all buttons. You could date yourself.
Fowler has his paper. I like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes, yeah. Yeah. There you go. Yes. All right, let me read into the record. We're at item number 2. We're at 105 Mesa Lane. This is a revised project description. Proposal of additions and a remodel to an existing 1,985 square foot, 2-story, single-unit residence consisting of demolition of the existing garage and construction of a new 407 square foot attached garage, 713 square feet of first-floor additions, and 131 square feet of second-floor additions. Project includes construction of a new 696 square foot accessory dwelling unit, ADU, with a 71 square foot upper level deck, a new pool and spa patio, 634 square foot deck, and hardscape and landscape improvements. The proposed total of 3,648 square feet on a 9,117 square foot lot is 105% of the maximum required floor to lot area ratio. Planning Commission approval of a floor area modification is required. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. Project was last reviewed on November 8th, 2021. Do we have minutes from the previous meeting?
Thank you, Chair Miller. And the motion from the prior meeting was continue indefinitely to the full board prior to the staff hearing officer with comments. And those are on the screen. And then I have some brief staff comments as well once you've read those.
Vice Chair Kalais, would you be so kind to read the minutes into the record, please?
This project was continued indefinitely to the full board prior to the staff hearing officer with the following comments. The applicant shall study the location and massing of the proposed portion of the garage that encroaches into the front yard setback along Mesa Lane. The applicant shall provide additional information regarding the FAR for adjacent parcels, and the board would like to see a side-by-side of the exterior elevations of the existing and proposed project. The motion was made by myself, seconded by Mr. Motisha, and it carried unanimously 6-0.
All right, thank you. If you can go over the minutes and anything else that's
Actu-
developed. Yes.
Chair Miller, before we get started, I just had some brief staff comments. So you should have received a staff memo
Yes.
by the case planner for the project, Robert Dostalek, who's here. If you have any questions throughout the meeting. And within that memo, it essentially discussed how at the prior meeting, the accessory dwelling unit did not count as part of the floor to lot area ratio, but it now does, hence the change in the FAR being 105% at this point. Thank you.
I have the paper. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to start, we, as you heard from Laura, that we are now having to include in the FAR
Mr. Wolf, can you turn on your microphone? It should light up green, and then just get it really close to your mouth.
Okay, all
Thank
right,
you.
there we go. Sorry about that. So now we're having to include the FAR in our calculation. Without the ADU, that is, we are at 85%. So with it, we're at
Can I
105.
stop you real quick? I have a
Yes.
question. Why was it counted? I'm just curious what the change was.
All right, Chair Miller and board members. Yes, so previously we were operating under the state law in the coastal zone.
Yes.
And just as of April 6th, so just a couple weeks ago, we adopted, the Coastal Commission certified our own ordinance for ADUs. And under the state law, FAR was not included. It was not part of the regulation. However, the city's new ADU ordinance, that's under Title 28, which is the coastal zone, FAR is now included in calculating, or ADUs now apply to the when calculating FAR, I should say. And that's just a provision that's in the city's zoning ordinance for ADUs in the coastal zone.
Okay.
May
Yes.
I
No, let's go forward. And do you have a question, a
I
specific
have a
question?
comment about what he just said.
I don't know.
Is
I
it
just-
appropriate to talk about that now, or should we
No,
wait?
I don't want it
Let's,
to be a discussion. I just wanted a question
yeah.
as to why it was counted. and now
Chair
it was
Miller, we
not.
can go back if there's questions during the questions
Yeah.
portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. So we consequently did a floor area ratio study of the neighborhood. You can see these items here highlighted. That are over 85%. We're not the highest, 128. There's a 101. Oops, what did I do there? Gotta watch my fingers. There's us at 85. Or 104 actually is what we are with the ADU. So again, these don't include if there were ADUs. They're not shown on here, and I wouldn't know what they are. So, and that's, as you know, these houses that are along Edgewater Way, some of those are the ones that are the larger homes. And again, I don't know which ones may have ADUs in them either. So let's see, going back here, moving very slowly. Okay. So what we have done, I'll focus on this site plan here, if I can get it to work. Okay, there we go. I think our files are large. So what we did, we took your advice, obviously. We have now we originally had the idea that we were going to come down this existing driveway and come in through here and have a garage here, build a second story, and we thought everything was hunky-dory. Well, we realized that there were two issues there. One was the access through that. We had about half of it that was allowed to us, so we were getting conflicting information. Anyway, so we kept the garage back here, but what we did was the real issue for the owner at the time was they're pulling in and out of this driveway was across a blind connection there, a sidewalk. And so we thought, let's give it a little more room. We'll pull it back. We'll provide a fence there. We'll allow for a little bit of parking up in the front as well, behind the gate. Pull it back, add more landscaping, pull the garage out of the setback, pull everything out of the setback. So now we have no modification request. We have our open yard all in the same spot. Before we were asking for modification to separate it into two pieces. Now we've got it all as one. We're out of our setbacks, and so all is good. So what we have here is the garage pushed back on top, a stairway up that leads to an ADU on the second floor. We've got these shaded areas that are showing little bits that we're adding to the lower level. We're adding a small gym area and a laundry area to the lower floor, and then the upper floor, we're going to be adding, oops. Okay, so why am I, oh, all right, I'm gonna scroll past that. That's the existing. There's the floor plan. And here is the upper floor. So again, maintaining more or less the footprint of the upper level. We're adding a little bit of square footage here, a little bit to here, and then of course we're rebuilding. So the original garage was actually in the setback. So we're pulling it out of the setback, scooting it back off the street, and then stacking a ADU to the top of it. And if you can remember, the style of the architecture was kind of a seaside, I would say, flavor.
70s.
Yeah, shed shape. Actually, here's a better image. Here we go.
Yeah, ecology architecture.
Ecology, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we're keeping that theme. We've fixed, there was some very steep and some very flat roof lines, which we've just kind of simplified. Again, we're keeping all underneath the 25-foot maximum height there with both the ADU and the additions to the house. Again, keeping the same flavor and style throughout. So that same redwood color that's out there that all the other houses have, we're going to maintain that same look. Yeah, we're going to re-landscape, of course, site work, which Rob will get into. So this is kind of the addition. This is the addition area here. This is the addition here. Some changes to the roof lines, of course, on the upper levels as well. This is the existing house. And kind of the shot, Mesa Lane. And it's, to its advantage, there's quite a bit of planting already. There's a center median that has some quite large ukes. There's a pretty good palette of plant material on the street frontage already. There you can kind of see that corner and how much planting is there now. And most of that is going to be maintained as well. We're going to maintain most of that and add to it as well. Let's see here. And so this is really renderings depicting what you would see or not see because of the planting that is going to be there and that is there. This is a front shot. I'm getting this to respond to me here. Come on, hand.
Here, let's just take these.
I know, yeah, here we go. I got them right here. Okay. Oh, I see. Well, I'll do that.
How does it get rid of the nice
How do I get the
blue
blue
patina?
off of there? I got it. There we go. Papers. Maybe we should, yeah, it's still there. Darn it.
Right. Oh, my God.
It's a big file. I think that's part of it too, whenever you show renderings like that. Okay, there we go. I'll look at the big picture there. So this is a shot from that same corner. I was showing the landscaping and the planting there, so very little. That's the drive that has a gate on it that you can't get down. This is a shot, really a shot that not many people, if anybody, would really see. That's kind of from the ocean at your back looking toward the house. This is a shot looking back from the driveway as you pull into that new, there's the addition of the second floor. This is a shot with the corner of the neighbor's house right there. And that's the corner there. Again, another corner shot. This is a shot from the neighbor's house looking back. There's quite a bit of tree coverage there, and we're going to actually lush this up. I kept these low so you could at least see what was happening there. This is a picture from the west neighbor looking back toward us. Again, their orientation is not toward us, it's going to be out toward the south, toward the ocean. And then with that, I will let Rob go into landscape. Do you want me to control this, or do you want to do it? Yeah. Okay, all right. Okay. Good. There you go.
Thanks.
As best I can.
So you need to speak. I'm Rob Fowler, landscape architect. As you can see, I mapped all the vegetation along that west property line. It's kind of an eclectic mix. You know, you can see redwood, acacia, oaks, sycamores. So we're keeping all that, and then there's a few limited gaps that I'm kind of filling in, both for privacy for our client and then privacy for the adjoining properties. On the north side, we're also filling in, but I'm trying to keep the tree, at least picking a tree that's going to stay low so that they can see over the tree. And there's a, yeah, right there, thank you. There's a view corridor too for this homeowner that you can go down to the ocean. And so one of the things that I did was organize the hardscape, and then that deck you see is different, but really all it takes is being up 18 inches in the view on that property is significantly different. And so that's why the deck kind of extends out into the yard. Now the homeowners want as much yard as possible. So when you see one of the schemes I have that has a pool, we were exploring the idea of looking at a pool. He was thinking of it. I don't know whether this can.
Yeah, City TV.
I don't know.
Can you zoom in on that image?
There's another sheet of mine that has, it's a.
I'm looking,
Okay.
we're all looking up.
City TV, can you turn on the overhead camera?
Only for a moment. Yeah, so I mean, if you actually look at my other sheet too, you see I had 2 alternate pool locations that we were exploring. And then I just did this little sketch right there of how a pool would fit in conjunction with the deck and the spa. And so the owner, after seeing it, he really liked to have more yard. So I think he's leaning towards having more landscaping, and so at the expense of the pool. But at least we wanted to kind of get that in because for the land use part of it. So could we go back to the landscape plan? I just wanted to present that. So I organized the hardscape, and what we didn't have before, we had a driveway before coming off that area right there. Was kind of awkward because then that's your backyard and then you have a driveway in there. So I think the hardscape kind of is more works better now in terms of identifying the spaces, so we have a true backyard with not a driveway in it. And then also when you go up to then you go up to the front, once you go up to the front. So one of the things about Mesa Lane, and a few people are familiar with that, is this is almost like a de facto parking lot for this homeowner. So they have, and he's really, I mean, the homeowners are great about it because they just have people parking there, going to the beach, the 1,000 steps right there the whole time. And so that's part where they want to have that screening and be kind of really hidden and tucked away. So the front entrance actually is, we kind of, you see it's vegetated, and then the way we did the fencing, we didn't over-celebrate that. It's a little bit intended to be kind of hidden. But then when you come through that gate, kind of created a little entry courtyard that wasn't there. There's some fencing, interior fencing panels and things like that are kind of like right that one right there, those 2 panels that are just this kind of staggered so that you can create some internal screening so that you can be in the front courtyard and then you're not seeing the trash. And then way at top is an ADU up there, so we wanted to get some separation from that. We did explore where those fruit trees are of having a pool there, but that is in the setback. We thought that'd be a great location if we were to do a pool, and we still may consider that. So, back to, so, you can see the plant palette. I have, olive trees, and then there's Melaleuca nasophyllum. What is no landscape architects use olive trees? Is that the?
Yeah,
It's my struggle.
I'm laughing at Bill
Okay.
trying to
Struggle with the
Okay.
hand. Talk with the hand.
Sorry.
Okay, no, that's all right. We're proposing permeable paving, and that's at nighttime, at dusk, yeah. So the planting is still, is yet to be further developed. This was really trying to kind of create, create a residence and create a hardscape and create kind of a flavor for this property, and that's really what we're trying to put forth at this point. The landscaping will be further refined and simplified as we move forward, so that's about it.
I will add one in closing, that this ADU, in fact, will be used as a residence for the son. So there is a function here and a use and a reason. Young son who can't afford to buy a house in Santa Barbara, hard to believe.
Yeah, that is. I'm shocked.
So that's the reason for the ADU. Right.
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. I'll bring
Thank
it back
you.
to the board. Did we have any public comment?
For this particular item, we did not have any public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gu. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for questions. So I'll just go down the list. Vice Chair Colas, do you have any
Chair,
questions?
Chair Miller, actually, before we go into questions and then eventually comments, the case planner, Mr. Doslick, has a few
Oh, sure.
comments that he'd like to provide to give additional context for when you're reviewing.
Great,
Thank you.
Yeah, Chair Miller and board members, just a few things to be keeping in mind as you're commenting and asking questions. You may recall a similar project that recently was before your board for 25 Los Alturas for an FAR modification, and it required some supplemental materials, and the board had the ability to waive those if it was determined to not really be necessary or helpful for the review. So a couple of things, as we've pointed out in the memo, we're caught in this ADU FAR situation. And as designed, it is at 101% of the FAR and would require
an FAR modification from the Planning Commission. So part of the applicant's desire today is to get a sense, take the temperature of the board basically, and get a sense of where the board stands in terms of supportability. However, some of these supplemental materials, you may not be able to get there today. But if you are able to, before we wrap up this item, give some general levels of support for each of the board members, that would be helpful. And then also, before we wrap up, if we could go through some of these supplemental materials and if the board would be inclined to require those of the applicant or inclined to waive those because they may not be beneficial for the review.
And Chair Miller, I do have them on the screen just so we can see them for a minute. There's a few of them. So there's a street silhouette, elevation, panoramic photo simulations, story polls, and other visual aids, and the 20 closest home survey. And then, go ahead.
Correct. And then there's also a neighborhood workshop. And all of the board does have the ability, the latitude to waive any and all of these.
Okay, I'm a little confused here.
Understandable.
So back in the old, where we didn't count the FAR, we are now counting the FAR of the ADU, which means it's fallen under the city's jurisdiction of the municipal code of the city.
Correct. Yeah, we're out of the
So-
state regulations.
This sounds really problematic to me. I'm like trying to negotiate this in my head because an ADU is a state mandated requirement for housing.
We've adopted the state mandate, we've modified it.
Correct.
So,
And maybe I can add,
well,
that might be
well, because I
helpful.
was going to say, when the ADU is, FAR is so high, then it goes under a higher level of criteria for design review.
Correct.
And we have the option or the purview to decline it if we feel the FAR is too large. But it
Correct.
seems to me that turns into a conflict of not allowing an ADU if we say it's too much. Is that correct?
Well, you'd be looking at the building more broadly as a size, bulk, and scale, and not specifically be looking at the architecture of the ADU, with the exception of the deck, which
So-
I definitely acknowledge it does make for some weirdness for the board in terms of their review.
This is the question that I attempted to FAR as, and what we're, had
Purview.
purview over.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to bring up when
Right.
we were.
Yeah,
Now we're discussing it, yes.
And
okay, I think we'll just go on because this could drag on, and I think you would like to proceed. So I'm going to move on to
that sounds good. And maybe we can revisit these before we wrap up the item, and we might have some additional clarity by that time.
Well, okay, so I'll say this real quick. Hypothetically, let's say the board is not comfortable with a high FAR, and we want it reduced. The only place we could really reduce it to make it right is the house, not the ADU.
That is the territory that we're in. Yeah.
Now, how do we decide? Now we're being asked, the board is being asked to decide now, and there's never been any discussion what the FARs are now.
And I should reiterate, you are not being asked to decide right now. So
Well, we are because,
Well,
you might not be comfortable in deciding now because some of the supplemental materials, you may need to request those and review those before you're able to render any sort of guidance at
I
this
see
point.
lawsuits in the future, but that's a different topic. We're going to go back to your project and support you. So anyway, let's go back to questions. We're at questions, right? Yes. Okay, so did we answer all our questions, or are we? Well, yeah, okay. So Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions?
I have very few questions. I really like what we're seeing. I know I shouldn't make comments yet, but vast improvement over what we saw previously. Can we look at I'll call it the Mesa Lane elevation, or what I think is the east elevation?
You want the 2D elevation?
Yeah, we can look at 2D and then maybe we'll look at the rendering. I think it'll cover. So,
East elevation here.
Right.
Street side.
so where we're seeing the, I'll call it the squarish window over the garage, I'm assuming the left-hand jamb of that constitutes an outside corner that returns back to, I'll call it the bulk of the residence. Is that accurate? I think you see it better in the rendering, actually.
It does. It is for lack of a better term, a glass corner, but it's not actually glass to glass. It'll be jamb to jamb with a center post structure there. Is that
Okay.
what you're asking?
Yes. And that is the ADU, correct?
That's the ADU, correct.
Okay. So I would like to ask staff's clarification, because I would like to eventually, but not now, because it's question time and not comment time, make a comment about this elevation as it relates to the second floor, which is the ADU. I'm assuming we can do that from an aesthetic standpoint. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Board Member Kalas, could you reiterate that question?
I have concerns about the nature of the massing and the fenestration on the second floor over the garage. That is the ADU. Is it within or without or outside of our purview to make a comment on that? The comment would be related to aesthetics and the overall aesthetic of the home and how that fenestration relates to it. But it is the ADU that I would be commenting on.
Sure. And we don't have our legal counsel here today, so I'm going to tiptoe a little bit. Technically, yeah, there shouldn't be a focus on the upper level above the garage, which is the ADU. But I believe you could broadly, from an FAR perspective, you could broadly comment on the size, bulk, and scale of the second floor.
But our purview is to look at ADUs in terms of their aesthetic consistency with the principal residence on a parcel. Is that correct?
Not always for the single-family design board. If it meets the ministerial design criteria, which this one does, with the exception of the little deck with the balcony that extends off the ADU. Otherwise, the ADU itself is not subject to design review by the board.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay.
You're welcome
Thank
to
you.
move on, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Ari Kelly, do you have any questions, please?
I do. I have a question about the plantings along the north elevation. If we can get to the landscaping plan. Okay. So it's the northwest corner. There, I'm seeing some plantings there. I'm just curious the height of those plantings. How high do those usually go? The
over
northwest.
here, sorry, yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's Prunus, can you hear me? That's Prunus lioni, and that is a native, and that's, I want to say that's about a 20-footer. It's not a real, it's actually a large shrub, you know, so it can be maintained it could be maintained as a hedge if so desired. The Arbutus marina further down towards the driveway is kind of like, I call it a medium canopy tree. And, you know, you don't see many bigger than 25 feet, but that takes years to get there. So that's a very common tree.
Okay.
Most of us
That's all I have.
specify,
Thank
so
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any questions, please?
I do, thank you. And just a clarification here about the pool. At this stage, are we actually considering the pool as sort of just in case, or what is actually being proposed?
I think that there was a notion that we wanted to do the pool, and the desired location is the one on the right-hand side, not that one, that's off the deck, and that's what I showed you with the sketch. The one on the right-hand side is where we're showing fruit trees, and then that was a perfect place to put a pool. And then as it turns out that that's in the setback. So So I guess there's some notion that we wouldn't mind pursuing a pool if it could be in that location, and I know that might entail a modification. But again, you know, I felt like this owner is kind of burdened by this amount of, you know, amount of traffic and parking conditions along there. So that was part of using that location for it, is almost kind of a moat or a buffer.
Okay. And then I guess in either case, could you explain then what is really happening across this private road here? And I'm interested in how it may affect views going either way, of either people in the yard or on the deck, what they're viewing across the road and vice versa.
Are you talking about this area here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to the, I guess it's the west.
That, I believe recently you reviewed a garage addition and an ADU that's gonna be built in the front there that runs parallel with this driveway. Otherwise, the house that is there, which I'm not showing on this, although I can show it on the earlier plan, is up against the bluff. Let me see if I can get to the,
Yeah, it's actually quite a ways away.
okay. It's the file sizes that bog this little computer down, I think.
To help answer that, on the west property line is heavily vegetated with existing vegetation. Across the way, it feels really open right across the way, and it's like Bill's saying, there's a house further back. So, and there's a little, and this owner has a little view corridor that actually when he's down the yard, he doesn't take advantage of. So that's part of my design, was to just get him to take advantage of that great little bit of ocean view that he has through there. But then there's a bunch of other houses.
Yeah, so this is the
Yeah.
house here, obviously, with its orientation to the bluff. That's the ocean out that direction.
Okay.
And
It's really
I
open.
believe I had seen a proposal for some development that's happening here. Does that not ring a bell with you folks? Oh, all right. There was a development sign out there. Okay.
But in that photograph, the,
Parking there.
oh, that's parking.
That's parking, and
I
there's
see.
a little garage, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they come in through here and then a driveway down, and there's site parking and then a little garage, and then yard, and then house.
Okay, great, that's helpful. And then you said to the west, there's vegetation, but it looks like it's on the
It's on the property line, the neighbor's property.
neighbor's
Yes,
property.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And you can see on this property
Yeah.
line, it's fairly thick vegetated there as well.
Okay, okay. And then, can we look at the driveway and the gate? I'm just wondering how large that apron is in front of the
Oh,
gate.
yeah. What we did was I think what we did was we lined up, here's kind of an existing drawing, you can kind of see how the driveway scooted over very tight to the property line. So we're actually twisting this, orienting it parallel,
Right,
and then coming straight out right now. So we're 20 feet or whatever the width is there.
sure. And I was looking for, can you tell me how much room is from the street to the gate? in
Yes,
the
I
driveway?
think I can zoom in there. It's a real test of my computer skills, isn't it? There's a dimension right there. Nope, thought there was. I believe, I think it's the setback, which is,
about
I
18
think,
feet, isn't it?
15 feet. And then we gave 20 feet from here, so it's 15 feet, I think, from maybe the drive from the edge of the road to the.
But that's part of trying to remedy all
Sure.
the traffic.
And we would,
Oh, yeah.
nobody be parking in that, obviously, that's the idea, is to.
But just
pull
waiting
back.
to enter. So it'd be a
Yes, yeah, there's a queuing, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, yeah. And
Okay.
this wouldn't be guests pulling in, this would be,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you.
gives them that safety visibility he was concerned about too with pedestrians.
Yeah. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have questions?
No questions.
Board Member Motish, any questions, please?
Yes, is that, the new gate for the driveway, is that a rolling gate or,
It's a rolling gate.
and it rolls, obviously rolls towards the ocean?
It rolls toward the ocean.
Okay. And I think we're only asking for more concept review. We'll probably end up coming back for another concept review because you're not definite enough for us to give you any
We would like to be.
any direction other than our comments. At least that's where I'm stuck. And the driveway, the private driveway that has an easement, half of that easement for the back of, for the southeast? South? Where am I looking? Am I looking straight north,
It'd be,
straight up? Yeah,
south.
north that way. So that would the south end of the property.
South end.
That is now, instead of, previous wanted to use it as access for a garage, now it is just access for gardening, for,
Yes, yeah. They have a gate there at the corner, which I'm having trouble scrolling down to, but there's a gate down here that they
Yeah.
currently have that they'll maintain.
There's a mailbox
properly.
there, I believe.
Oh, is that where it comes in?
That's all, that's.
So that will continue to be like it is, other than we'll most likely do a new gate and fence there.
I
Can't scroll.
putting the, deciding where that pool is going to be
So-
that's a big question, isn't it?
No, actually, let me speak to that.
It's a big
So-
question for us.
Okay, so if to simplify it, was the pool, in doing this exercise, the owner now wants more yard than he wants pool. So it was in there when we had to submit this, and since then, the owner has preferred, like if it's holding up his project, it would be pulled from the project because it's not his priority. It was the notion of getting it on the land use and getting part of this program if he wants to do it, and if budgeting allows down the way. So I certainly don't want it to hold up the project. So, I mean, you could omit it.
I have a
He
big
said if
question.
there was any opposition to it
Yeah.
at all,
Well, I have a
yeah.
big question of,
say goodbye to it.
do you really want to put that pool where you've, I'll wait till you, okay, I'm sorry, questions, Jeffrey. And I'm, Board Member Colas, I support your questions a little further, having to do with this idea of this ADU, and the board is now put in a position of looking at ADU, not commenting on ADU. You've done a floor, I also noticed the floor plan that you had the ADU, a closet of the ADU extended into the main residence by an angle, if I'm correct.
You are correct, yeah.
And that's the angle where you asked the question about the window. And part of it is a closet, part of it is dead space on the floor plan, on the second floor plan of the ADU. So we're,
Do you have a question? Is this framing
yeah,
a question?
are we asked to again, following in Board Member Colas's question, are we asked to make a decision on this and ignore the ADU? I don't think sorry, that's a comment. I'll wait for my comments.
All right,
I-
thank you.
No more questions.
All right,
I
thank you.
think I've brought up enough questions.
Um,
See, right there.
Yes, right here.
That's weird.
Yeah. Well, to explain that, if I may.
Yeah.
It's a strange connection existing in there, and the roofs are very challenging. So this was an option to create that roof, and in all honesty, we could keep it right to 85% as well, not including that. So, and we needed a closet storage, so makes sense. It would be weird no matter what we did, I think, whether it was used for the residents or for the AD.
I don't know
Looked
why,
better on the outside.
I, at this point, I have no questions either. I think what you've drawn is pretty clear and understandable. both landscaping and architecturally. So I will move it on to comments. So Vice Chair Colas, do you have any comments, please?
I'm not sure, but I think so.
I know.
So in regards to the issue of supportability for the FAR modification, which I think is one of the main reasons that you're here, based on direction from staff, I would be willing to provide positive comments for the FAR modification, but I'd like to be very clear on why I'm willing to do that, because I get very concerned about precedent setting and the next person in the queue saying, well, they did it. So this project is unique in that it is straddling this shift in policy or adopted ordinances. And I would hate to see an owner having gone through the expense of retaining an architect, a landscape architect, who've spent obviously a lot of time thinking about this project, and that all being for naught because they've gotten caught up in this in-between situation between the state and ourselves. So that is the first reason that I would be willing to provide positive comments. The second reason I would be willing to do in this specific project is because I think that the architects, on behalf of the applicant, have gone to great lengths to bring the footprint of the building in conformance with setbacks. I think the project is greatly improved in that regard from what we saw originally. And I think clearly there's a lot of work that's been done to have that happen. And so I think it bears merit, and I would be willing to support the FAR modification on this project for those reasons. Not to be precedent setting. I think the only other comment that I have about the project is that perhaps it's the way the exterior elevations are reading because of the horizontal siding versus the fenestration. Perhaps it's because of the complexity of the angles on the project. I guess I would just ask, without saying that I'm not something that I'm not supposed to say, but I would ask that you consider corner conditions, outside corner conditions, and reassure us that there's some consistency there in terms of how they're being treated. Those are my only comments.
All right, thank you very much. Board Member Arkelian.
I do. I believe the project is also a major improvement compared to the last one. I appreciate going away from the setbacks. I believe it's much more aesthetically appropriate and compatible with the neighborhood. I would ask if you would come back with a color board the next hearing. I'm on page 11 of the PDF, A4.1. Okay. So I'm the south elevation. Okay. I have some concerns about the glazing area proportions. I know this view of the second story. I know this is away from street view. It's not visible to the public. I'm just seeing that, some corners of the transom windows are pretty close to the fascia. I would maybe study maybe a height reduction of the transom, just maybe study a different configuration of those transoms. Interested in other comments from the board about the glazing along that elevation. I'm in support of the FAR modification. I believe all the supplemental materials can be waived. I'm on the fence regarding story poles, though. This is pretty close to the max building height. It's in a very visible part of Mesa Lane. Regarding story poles, yeah, I believe that there should be story poles. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Okay, Board Member
Yeah, thank you. I guess for the record, I wasn't here previously for your other presentation on this, but I have looked at the video and looked at the minutes, so just to be square. And that said, I think that if we could look at A42, which is, I think, the next page. Just a comment here, and I realize there's a lot of vegetation that's planned for this. But from an aesthetic standpoint, this east elevation, which is the formal front of the house, to me could benefit from some, maybe I'm just missing the front door, because I know it's on the side entry. But to me, as it doesn't really present itself to the street as the front of the house. So my suggestion would be to do something to try to announce it a little better as the front of the house, because I almost like the back of the house better, because it's because of the balconies, but we don't need to go there. I'm not suggesting a balcony on the front, but it's just it's a series of planes, and the garage door. So in a way, it's to me the garage door that is really saying hello to the street, not the rest of the front of the house. So I'd encourage you to study that and see if there's something else that you could do to connect it to the street itself. Secondly, I think that it's a very long, a very wide house on the lot as well. The FAR issue is murky right now, but at least at this stage of the game, since this is a concept review, I don't know that I'm ready to waive anything associated with the FAR exception, because I'm not sure how the neighbors really think about it. And so that's where I stand on that. But otherwise, I think it's you've done a lot with the house. There's a lot of activity here on the site. You've used every square inch of it. I'm sure the owner will love it, but those are still my comments.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I think the mass, bulk, and scale is appropriate, and therefore the FAR modification I'm in support of. I think that there's sufficient screening with plant material along the property line for privacy. The building material matches what's existing and is high quality. I would reconsider possibly the bamboo. I've just noticed it's very invasive and becomes a problem, so something to just think about. The pool in the front, I know that that's not what you're proposing, but I would just comment that I would not support that modification. And the deck of the ADU, I think, is appropriate location in regards to privacy, so I'm in support. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha.
Yeah, as far as size, bulk, and scale, I think you're lucky you have all that landscaping there already, because if we didn't have that landscaping, size, bulk, and scale would be in question here, at least in my mind it would be. I think I'm still questioning swimming pools. I would agree with you. I don't agree. I wouldn't support the swimming pool in the front. I think swimming pool in the back is more appropriate. The front is, when you've got a massive two-story size, bulk, and scale right there in the front, and then you're putting a pool right. Let's go out the second window and dive into the pool. I mean, the pool doesn't belong there. And yeah, other than that, I think the design meets the neighborhood compatibility, because in that area of Mesa Lane, this is what is built there. Prior, years ago, they put this type of house in with this vertical wood siding, and it's appropriate for the neighborhood. It seems to me that not last year, a few years back, we did a project that was right next to the 1,000 Steps, but I have forgotten. Do you remember, Brian, if we?
No.
Seems to me a while back. Yeah, I would support the project and I would like to see you back with another concept review to get us to kind of agree with you a little bit more. And I still have questions on ADU and where we are involved with the ADU now, which is a big question. As of April 7th or whenever it was, we now are forced to look at it, don't look at it, decide what the ADU or what the FAR should be. We don't know what they are. We've always had, our guidelines they weren't positive, but they were 85%. Well, what are they now? State is mandating us, and then it tells us we are not allowed to look at the ADU. Kind of mixing up our,
Purview,
yeah, that's my comments.
Well, as far as ecology architecture, you did a very good job. Makes me want to watch the Mary Tyler Moore Show again. Yeah, and I know the neighborhood, and I think you did a really great job. Yeah, the pool thing, I think, is important to get that, figured out. And then obviously, I think the board has expressed they're not supportive of it being in the front. So if you do it, they'd probably be more supportable in the back. So yeah, so that would be the direction to go. Yeah, I think there's a nest of flies there that need to be worked out regarding purview of what the ADU and what we can comment on, because allowing it to be part of the FAR jurisdiction for the city, it muddies the waters in terms of how we can speak in terms of the architectural appropriateness of the ADU now, because it sounds like, and the direction it would have to go is if we had a project that came before us that we did not approve or support the large ADU, the only place that we could take the square footage off would be the main house. The ADU would probably not be touched. Somehow it would have to be immune. I don't know how they're going to figure that out, but it's kind of something like that.
Chair Miller, I just want to, for the board's awareness, so we've had our local ordinance for ADUs adopted for inland areas for a couple years now, and this is really just taking effect in the coastal zone. So the case may be where you might have an applicant in the inland area who is considering doing an ADU, and we've always counted the ADU as part of the FAR in the inland areas.
Yeah.
So in those cases, they have to make the call of whether or not they want to request an FAR mod, or if they just don't want to opt to do an ADU, right? So
Okay.
it's a similar situation here.
Very good, thank you. All right, well, I've said enough. I think we've said all our comments, so you're here for concept review. What is it you actually you want to design?
Well, what I do want to do is point of clarification on the supplemental materials. That's one of the things that Robert's asking us to do. You have mentioned maybe story poles. That's one of the things. Is that all the only items on the list of supplementals that we would
Are we asked to actually make a motion, or are we just making comments?
I, for one, cannot,
So,
somebody else said that I can't make a decision now on any of those supplemental
So-
because we haven't looked at enough to project to come up with a.
So Chair Miller, the real purpose of this meeting is because the ADU is now included in the FAR. You know, it's generally the same design that you saw previously, other than that they've changed to avoid some modifications. They're looking, prior to submitting formally for an FAR modification, whether or not the board would consider support for that modification before they pay the money to, you know, pursue that. So just general feedback about size, bulk, and scale. Would the board be supportive of an FAR mod, yes or no? You may not have enough information to determine that today. And also whether or not the board is supportive of waiving any of the supplemental materials. And Mr. Doskalik can cover the ones that the applicant has already provided with this project.
Correct. And I can just point out a couple. So one of them is the neighborhood workshop. And just to let you know that this particular project has been noticed twice so far for these concept reviews. And so that gives you a flavor of maybe the neighbor's interest thus far. That's not to tell you to waive it, but just giving you some idea as to the notification that's already occurred.
It's really easy for me to get confused here. So to try to simplify what you're saying is, what you've got here is the same thing you showed us before.
Not really, no. I mean, we've scaled it way back.
So it's actually smaller.
Yeah, I mean,
But the shift is now that they've got this new ordinance, we have to add this whole new level of,
well, because we're over the 85% with the ADU being added into it now,
so you
we have to go into.
base design.
They've asked for you guys to determine whether or not we're needing to provide supplemental information so you can help make the decision about whether it's good, bad, or otherwise.
And
So
maybe I can add as well. Correct.
I'm a little
So
confused myself to a certain degree.
Yes.
so
To
we're-
me, it seems like you need to show us what you would like with the point of eliminating these four, whatever you call them. And if you have showed that you don't want them, ask for them, and then we'll decide whether you can have these. Like Mr. Alakalian has asked for story poles.
Yes.
Well, that's a good
we could
comment.
well,
do that, yeah.
So
But we
I
need to
think
know
Mr.
what you're asking, what you're not.
I think Mr. Dostalik was going to speak to the items that the applicant has already provided us in terms of the list that's on the screen,
correct.
because I think they've already done number 5.
Correct. And
So
if that's
maybe he
sufficient.
could speak to that.
Correct, yes. So the applicant has prepared the 20 closest home survey, and if the board is comfortable with the information that's been provided, that one can be considered to be waived. And I don't want to put any words in the board's mouth, but they have provided some. And so the story poles and the other visual aids, as you can see, some of the examples of what other visual aids are in addition to story poles. If the board feels that those would be appropriate to assess the size, bulk, and scale of the project. And then also the panoramic photo simulations. If
After you're done, I'll about 2 items too, if I may.
Sure, and so the panoramic photo simulations, the applicant has provided some of those, so that might even be able to be waived if the board is comfortable. And then the street silhouette elevation, if the board believes that would be helpful, that's certainly something that could be included, or if not, that's something that could be waived.
And item 1, which we're not seeing on the screen, can you speak to that?
Correct, yes. So the neighborhood workshop, and that one hasn't been held yet. And that was one that I was just pointing out, and this isn't, again, to make up the board's mind for them or anything, but this particular project has been noticed twice to the neighborhood in a 300-foot radius, which would be a similar noticing for this, except for this would be the 20 closest parcels. So comparable coverage area.
Is that something you guys provide, or do we contact the neighbors and create a workshop?
You would contact the neighbors, yeah.
Okay.
Correct,
We're
yeah.
happy to see that.
It would be a workshop that the applicant would organize.
And that's only triggered because you've gone exceeding the 85% because they changed the rule now because of the ADU.
Actually, the neighborhood workshop is only triggered when it's above 100%.
What are we
Right.
looking at now?
So-
105.
So it's kind of like, I have a request that Board Member Colossus put into verbiage, something that I'm sort of like, just to get this through,
I'm going to,
because this can go on.
okay, I'll make an attempt here.
Please.
But I'll have to put my glasses on for that. So, and I'm going to make a comment, make a motion, and then clearly there will be modifications to that, I'm sure. But, so I think the board generally feels positive about the project and that we would be willing to support the FAR modification for the reasons that I stated, and that generally I think we think the size, bulk, and scale is okay, especially given the amount of screening on the parcel. I think that it would be advisable to request 2 supplemental items. That would be the neighborhood workshop and story poles. And I don't think they have to be crazy level story poles. I think they could be basic story poles. But I think that would be an opportunity for the neighbors to see what the effects are on the corner and then to have a conversation about that. And then I think that just generally what I'm hearing from the board is that moving forward, we'd obviously need more developed plans. We would need clarity on the pool issue. I don't think we are supportive of the pool in the front yard setback. We would like to see some announcement or definition of entry along Mesa Road. We would ask that the applicant study the fenestration. I think that was on the westerly elevation as it relates to the relationship between the head of the transoms and the lowest points of the fascia, and also the relationship of windows to, or the fenestration to outside corners of the structure itself. We'd like to see the bamboo removed from the landscape planting plan. I think those are the bulk of the comments that I've heard. And I guess the other thing is I think it would be really helpful if we did calendar a discussion with staff for the board to discuss the newly adopted ordinance, or it's newly adopted in the coastal zone, but I think it would be helpful if we just had that conversation at large now that it's really citywide.
One question. Do you give direction on the story pole locations?
Good question. Would it,
Which corners, which ridge?
Chair Miller and board members, it would be the board that would provide that guidance for design review projects.
So I would defer to Mr. Arakelian because I think he had the concerns and the recommendation of story poles. It seems like it was not along Mesa Lane, but along the,
North elevation, maybe?
yeah, but I'll defer to him.
Can I make one clarification on the bamboo? It's a clumping variety. It's not the spreading variety that everybody fears. So that's,
okay.
would that change, would that change your opinion if it was the clumping and not the? Okay, thank you.
I have that elevation. if that'll help.
I would ask for the north elevation and the east elevation.
North and east, ridge and height.
Corners and heights.
And I don't know if that was supposed to be put in the form of a motion or if it's just comments. if it's supposed to be a motion, that's my motion.
Vice Chair Class, yes, we are requesting a motion, and then we'll just need a second.
Do we have a second
So
for
that's
this
my
motion?
motion.
Okay, Ms.
I'd like to ask if the maker of the motion and the second would consider, once I turn my microphone back on, if the maker of the motion and the second would consider adding the silhouettes and the panorama. I know that almost gives us the whole flush in the poker hand here, but I, for one, am still struggling with how it fits into the neighborhood from a massing standpoint. So that would be helpful to see, at least for me, to see that.
So maybe somebody could explain to me what a panorama is versus a silhouette. I'm familiar with a street silhouette, and the reason I wasn't going to ask for that, Mr. Brentlinger, is because I think that because it's on the corner and it's sort of at the end of Mesa Lane, it didn't seem like it would be very informative. But maybe the panorama might be.
Vice Chair Colas, I can read from our Florida Lot Area Ratio Supplemental Application. So for the panoramic photo simulations, it states panoramic streetscape photographic presentation with a simulation of the proposed project superimposed on the streetscape panoramic photographs.
So,
Which we actually tried to do with the computer model. So we actually
Right.
tried to do that already, and I modeled the neighbor's building.
what I'm struggling with all this information now is the minutes from our previous meeting with this. These concerns didn't come up, and now they're suddenly coming up. So I'm like, why is it suddenly a concern? Because I'm just like, why do we need story poles when we've already approved what they had, and actually, they've even reduced it, so I'm kind of puzzled as to why you have a concern now that we need. That's, I would just like to know why you suddenly want story poles.
Well, now it's past April 7th, and we have questions.
Well, I think the project before us is significantly different than the last project.
Okay, well, that's my question, and that's a good
Yeah.
answer, so, okay.
I
Yeah.
would volunteer story poles would be helpful, so.
Okay, perfect. Great.
So in regards to Mr. Brentlinger's question or suggestions, Mr. Wolf, you said that you attempted to do that in terms of the panoramic, and did you struggle with that? Or
For
what was the
s-
outcome of that?
Same exact reason that you gave for the streetscape, the corner lot, and, which I modeled. And then the next house is off the bluff, so there really is, it's not like the Mesa where you have house. It's a big separation between those. I'm happy to do it if I have it on the model. I can even just give you a 2D of that.
Let me suggest this then, let me withdraw those two from the waiver, but I would like to ask for those as part of, when you return to see us, and basically what I'm looking for is something that helps me understand its relationship to the rest of the neighborhood better. However you want to do that.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I'll-
I meant to go out there today, but didn't have time in order to understand that better myself, which I'll certainly try to do the next time. But right now, it's kind of in isolation from my standpoint of seeing the site plan, and you've got the one aerial that does help with that, but it's hard to see the massing of those homes just from the aerial.
Yeah, I'll do what I can.
Thank you.
Accepted as part of the motion, so maybe just the applicant would provide additional information regarding neighborhood context.
Thank you.
Great,
May I ask to add one more thing to that?
go ahead.
For the applicant to add a color board.
Yeah, it's fine. We're gonna
Okay.
need a second again.
Did the seconder accept that? Okay. May I have a roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
No. Yes.
Vice Chair Claus,
Yes.
Board Member Arkalian,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Morticia.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
In that house, or in the neighborhood.
Could we have a 5-minute break?
Yes,
And,
so we'll be recessing for 5 minutes.
All right, thank you. Design Board. We're on to item number 3. This is 857 Sea Ranch Road. It's a continued item. They're requesting project design approval. Proposal for a 1,040 square foot second level addition and 734 square foot lower level addition to an existing 2,253 square foot single unit residence with an attached 433 square foot garage located in the Hillside Design District. Project includes a 234 square foot covered deck, 475 square foot covered patio, permitting the existing driveway configuration and an existing vehicle gate. The proposed total of 4,461 square feet on a 47,480 square foot lot is 89% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings, Hillside Design District, and slope lot findings and grading findings are required. Project was last reviewed on August 30th, 2021. Do we have minutes we could read into the record, please? Vice Chair Collas, would you like to read the minutes?
The motion was made to continue the project indefinitely with return to the full board with the following comments. The board generally is in favor of the project and the general approach to the addition. The board encourages the applicant to continue studying the mass of the proposed addition and the height in order to lighten the visual appearance of the proposed split-level addition and to create a more consistent vocabulary with the existing home. The board appreciates the use of consistent materials and the general nature of the project. The board encourages the applicant to consider options that would bring the FAR closer to the 85% guideline. Motion was made by myself, seconded by Mr. Arakelian. It passed unanimously, 5-0. Ms. Klein was absent.
All right, thank you. And Board Member Klein, have you reviewed the video?
Yes, for the record, I did.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, if you'd like to present your project, and especially in particular go over the items that were on the minutes, that'd be great.
Excellent. Good evening. I'm Ryan Mills with DMHA.
Michael Stroh with DMHA.
Christian Go with DMHA.
Okay. Let's see. I'll do a quick run through. I believe the entire board saw this project before.
I was not here at the last
Okay.
meeting, but I did look at the
Okay.
video and read the
Okay.
minutes
Okay,
for the
great.
record.
I didn't know how deep would you like me to cover the sheets or just kind of move
Just
through
put in-
and
well,
okay.
let's see,
Dive
you're-
in, yeah.
Yeah, you're
Do I
here
have
for
15 minutes? Is that what it
project
is?
design approval.
Yeah.
I would in particular focus on the minutes and.
Okay.
Yeah. go
Okay,
from there.
sounds good. So just while we're staring at the cover sheet, I mean, the main moves in terms of statistics was massaging and reducing the addition and entry breezeway portion, getting us from, we were 91% FAR before, now we're at 89, getting closer to that magical number of 85, but we kind of landed there and feel pretty good about that. So that's probably it statistically. All right, let's go to the next page. I'll just move through. Here's the site photos that you're familiar with. Again, in general, the way we're looking at this project is the addition is meant to adapt to all the architectural style and intent and materials, so we're applying that across the board. Next page. Existing site and topography. Next page. Here we'll talk about a couple things. So Mike, can you zoom in? So you see in the darker color, obviously. All right, that's probably good. So you can see the lighter gray is the existing house on the right. The darker hatched gray is our addition. So the rectangle, you can do the cursor as I talk maybe, Mike. So the main rectangle is the two-story split-level addition. And then in between, slightly lighter, is that breezeway addition. In terms of the site, there's only a couple issues. So just plan north of that, you see we are permitting the as-built driveway, but amending that kind of loop part. They previously had additional parking that we no longer need, so we're just kind of pulling that back and letting some of the landscape they have just sort of fill in there. And then also permitting the as-built gate and have been working with planning through that. There's a Knox box and all that good stuff. So that's part that you didn't see previously. Anything else there I'm missing?
No, not really. We've developed our grading and drainage plans, and basically, essentially, we've tried to limit the amount of impact we're making on the site to just the footprint and just the immediate outdoor areas to tie them into the additional adjacent existing patios, but really just sort of minimizing the impact on the hillside as well as to the street.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's go next sheet. Floor plans. Oh. There we go. So on the right, quick lay of the land. Kind of the middle portion is existing residence with the garage tucked in it. So early studies, we thought, what if the new garage was in the addition? But because of the split level and us pushing it down so much, we opted for. Really, it's the upper level, but it's much closer to the main level as the master is what you walk first up to. And then the bed wall is really that entry side. If you can, Mike, kind of go up and forth. That whole wall is the bed wall of the master and the closet. So one of the comments from last time we were studying additional openings, and we've stuck with just the transom, which we've massaged the size a little bit, but we didn't want any additional openings because the road there especially is actually a little higher, right? We're sitting above, and in studying that, we kind of looked right into that bedroom, so we kind of shied away from that.
The road is actually about 6 feet directly above. So if we actually had, windows that had a 6'8" header, you'd have headlights into. So.
And it really echoes the existing architecture, which you'll see in elevations in a minute. Like the existing house on this north side is very quiet. The garage door is clad, the walls are clad. There's very few openings, so we kind of mimicked that architecture. So, and then this is the lower level. So again, you'll see in study we've pushed down, as much as we think we can. We're also balancing where that hit the site and minimizing grading as well. So we're trying to do that. That's sort of what also drove our height study, which we'll show you in a second. Roof plan, pretty straightforward. Okay, let's start.
We'll get this.
Yeah, let's start at the bottom one. That might be kind of most helpful to understand the elevation. So this is the south elevation, really the rear yard looking back at it. So on the right is the main great room and fireplace. And then you can see it has a kind of a shed roof with clear story. Then we go into that very low slung flat roof that spans. We kept that line for the breezeway, and then we step up. And so here's the first place to see kind of how we start setting the height. So we have a little bit of wiggle room, but you see our finished floor to that upper level is,
It's 10 feet from the lower level to the
finished floor.
The upper finished floor, and then we've got a 9-foot plate on the lower eave.
relative to for that floor?
It's up 30 inches.
30 inches. So that's the step we chose. So when we're talking about height, much lower, it just feels like it's a underfloor. So we wanted to kind of get up enough to really be a true split level. So, and then same thing, we're about 30 from that flat breezeway eave. Our plate on the low side is about 30 inches above kind of that natural step, which felt good to us. And then as we go up, this is the driveway side we were just talking about. Again, starting on the left is the existing residence, that vertical clad siding. The clear story sits above that, and then our new breezeway there. And then here's the stepping. So again, in studying, there's a couple things to do. So where we landed, we are not any lower than before. So I just want to be clear about that. But what we started massaging was, how much bite above that eave. We have that long fascia board. We studied lowering the transom sill, but it felt too close. We liked the amount of bite that that low eave has on that site wall. The amount of siding you're seeing in the addition mimics the actual existing one story. So it just sort of steps up right off a planter. And then likewise, the clear stories also, we kind of played with heights, but where we landed matches the existing clear story height. So different angles, but it felt like the same language to us. We did introduce those side punches you can see on that. Is that
That's the
west elevation? which runs through the closet and the office below, and the bathroom and the office below. Then lastly, here's another good way to look at it. So kind of looking from the east elevation, seeing the profile of the existing house, and then kind of the echo of the new addition, seeing the same slope and how it sits just that 30 inches higher. We kind of like the rhythm of that. Okay, and then this is sort of, here's the full 2-story addition in the back in all of its glory. So you can see how we kind of set down below the floor level, minimize the patio and the hillside, essentially just hit that slope edge and let it drop. One item that I think is worth talking about, it was part of our planning completion. Pilar noted something about getting feedback on the glass rails. I know in general in design guidelines, the board tries to avoid glass rails, at least we did years ago. So I just wanted to point out that is still what we're proposing. The guidelines talk about just context and how does it fit with the architecture. And so for us, this whole facade is glass. So we wanted that to sort of reflect that and not have any more busy lines. There's no other rail detail on the rest of the house, so we were hoping that could just be adequate. So something maybe specifically to get feedback on.
And also just because we've actually nestled this thing into the site versus sitting at grade, we don't need railings on the bottom level. So it's really just across that glass facade at the upper level.
Okay, let's go to the next sheet. Sections, that middle one in particular, I think is really helpful to understand. I don't know how we landed. So on the left is the existing residence and the driveway dropping down, and then kind of showing that really 30-inch step up. So I think that helps understand that. There's our total height and floor to floors. So yeah, the underfloor we had a little, I guess they're the same height, aren't they, Mike?
Yeah.
The plates are the same on the 2 levels. Okay, let's go to the next sheet.
So we've gone through and begun to figure out our structural sections and how to, working with our structural engineer who knows a lot about how to put together mid-century modern houses, have worked with him with the window systems, trying to figure out exactly how the beams are going to sit, exactly how we can flat frame the roof, and then we've actually, instead of deepening the section of roof, we've actually put the insulation on top, but we've set it back so that we have this big deep eave line everywhere, and so we've set that insulation back, and it's just a neat little trick. And basically, because of the pitch away from the street, you're not going to perceive it really at all.
I felt it was important to try to match all those same proportions as before.
And so you can see in our 2-story volume, and again, this is where our glass railing is, we've got deep eaves on both of them, so you won't even perceive that extra little bump. And then just did a section cut through. This is through that foyer piece, that sort of glass box, if you will. We've built kind of inside and outside planters that'll sort of kind of give this sense of indoor and outdoor space, which is something that the existing house has a really great feel to it. And so we've tried to mimic that with the way that the foyer steps down on the site. We've got our windows and doors, and then we're in the process of developing our details, which we would be happy to bring back for final with our materials and everything. And then we've got our renderings.
Yeah, so we'll just walk through these. So I think these show the project well too. So here we are, we're on that the rear yard. The canyon has a pretty decent slope, so we're obviously floating. This is like a drone shot, but I think it's just nice to see in context, kind of, again, continuing, it really fans out, right? So the existing great room on the right side with the brick chimney is kind of facing towards kind of the sunrise room. Then you see the middle portions go flat and low to our new breezeway, and then the new addition, master, is fanning out towards the sunset. So we're kind of like opening up that. And then here's a good look at, so we're trying to maintain all the existing site walls and hardscape currently as much as possible. So we're also proposing to match those. So you see on the right side, that's the existing site condition. It does have brick edging and brick steps, and then otherwise it's concrete in places or stucco finish. We'd like to paint all the stucco areas like a dark gray to match all of our new site walls. So we're trying to keep that as consistent and simple as possible. So let's go to the next. Here's that entry view. I think we just dropped down the driveway here, and I think this is a good place to see the balancing act. So we have in the middle that long horizontal bar of the existing residence and our breezeway. We're really framing that. That's sort of that aha view that'll see the islands. On the left, you see the transom of the great room kind of lifting up, and then so how we're mimicking on that on the right. So again, I guess we're here to argue. You guys asked us to lower it or study the mass of it. So again, having that planter wall down below, softening it with landscape, the siding being the same as the existing, we believe it's the right balance. So obviously open to your, but would love you to consider that. So again, the amount of siding that's above the breezeway to the bottom of the transom sill, we think is appropriate. It's kind of all the way up. So it's ultimately, what is it? How much higher are we than the existing ridge line on the left?
Yeah,
have that in
it
section?
works out to be about 2 feet.
2 feet taller. So that's, our overall addition is 2 feet taller than the existing residence, which is pushed way below the street. So all the neighbors above see clearly over it into the ocean view. Okay, let's go to the next view. Shot, focus. Right now.
Southwest?
Yeah, this is southwest view looking up. Again, not quite a real view. You'd be dropped down much farther, but we just want to kind of address this is how that addition looks, and there's that railing and how we set that up. And here where are we here?
This is wrapped around the existing portion of the house. You can see the architecture and the vernacular that's established here. We're trying to do essentially the same thing. We've got that nice little glass box between it with a thin roof.
Yep.
And then just this nice little nestle. And you actually start to get a sense of what that slope is too, as that comes off and how nestled that is into that.
And that's actually another great view, again, just to see that balancing act of like the existing transom shed roof on the right starts high. We have that low piece along the middle and then back up. We feel like that's the right composition. So, and this is another good place to see it in context, the step up. And
Classic. We had to generate this for planning.
So, yeah. Okay.
So.
Did we miss anything? Otherwise, let's see. Talked about the studying of the height and the massing. Talked about the FAR coming down to 91.
We went from 91 to 89.
91 to 89. And I think that covers the minutes. So I think that concludes our presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Did we get any public comment?
No, we did not receive any public comment on this particular item. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And
Bringing it
just
back.
to the audience, is there anyone that's attending that would like to do public comment on this particular item? Thank you.
Okay, bringing it back to the board for question. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
A couple questions. This is such a great project. I am still struggling, though, with this. I just feel like I'm just struggling with that. So I have a couple questions related to that. So you noted that the plate height on the lower level is 10 feet. That's 10 feet to the underside of, I'll call it your deck beams. Is that about right?
No, that was that floor to floor. Let's go to the section.
No,
I want to make sure we get this from here.
I thought I heard it was 10 feet plate height.
So we have, it's,
Oh, it's tiny.
no, yeah, I know.
It's in the
Getting
bigger
there.
section, Mike. Go to the full section too. It's easier to see there.
It's, the ceiling is at, it's 8'6". The ceiling's at 9 feet.
So go to the full section. When we said 10, I believe that was
So
a floor to
503,
floor.
and it was 493. So it is 10 feet floor to floor.
Mhm.
The Florida
That's where
Forest,
it is, like
yes.
that middle one. Go zoom in there.
That's not it.
The pressure's on.
This is hard to operate without being able to scroll. Sorry. That's it.
There we go.
Okay, let's make sure we get you the right answer.
You can just drag it.
Yeah, it's
by hand.
493 and 593,
Yeah, there we go.
or
It's 10 foot
493 and
floor to floor.
503. Okay.
So we've got 12-inch beams running through there. So we get a 9-foot ceiling lower, and then we get a 9-foot plate here. Well, 9'2" to there. So,
Okay. And then you said that the transom windows are matching the existing, is that correct?
Height.
That's
Just
the
height,
question.
yeah, not
Okay.
necessarily the width of them.
Okay, but the height is, I think in the rendering, it's difficult to see because of the, I'll call it the garage mass in front of the rear mass, so you don't read it all. It feels as though it's more squat.
Yeah.
you can actually see right here in this. So you see this,
This is the
about,
best, yeah.
This is about 30 inches tall, and you have it about 30 inches
Yeah.
tall there as well.
Yeah.
So,
It almost looks discrepant in the drawings because in some locations, yeah.
it's because of the angles
Foreshortening,
of the
yeah.
beams.
Yeah. Those are the only questions that I had.
All
That's
right,
it.
thank you.
Yep.
Board Member Arakalian?
One question for me. I was reviewing item 2 of the previous motion. So compared to the previous iteration, what would you say was the most major change you've done to study the massing of the proposed 2-story addition?
We'll take you through what we looked at. I mean, as I said, we kind of landed where we were before, pretty close, but the
Pretty
things we
close,
studied were sizes of transom. And let me maybe talk about, we looked at height. Now, could, that bottom floor that's solid in the back getting 9 feet clear, to me is kind of a requirement. Like, we're closed on 3 sides, that lower level. So the height, I think, is very valuable there. Now, on the upper level, could that overall height come down a few inches? Probably. What's interesting is, because we're canted down towards the view, so we have that 9'2" plate, and then we're losing a few more inches because of the deep eave. So that view is getting framed down to, less than 9 feet. So that's what's sort of driving that height too, and the slope we want to match. So could that nudge down a couple inches? Yes. We studied that, but that's why we felt strongly. We didn't want to frame that view. I don't know if you've had that experience when the header's too low and you see the islands and you don't, you wish there was more sky and sunset and sunrise. So that's one thing. The other things we looked at was just the amount of siding. We did test the openings on the driveway side, just because that is a big wall. So again, we were comfortable because that was the language of the existing architecture. So we kind of looked at everything and just, you have the final word, but we felt strongly that that was the right thing to do.
So part of we did also study actually taking, let me go to that.
Can we get rid of the fine box?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
It's bothering me.
I get it. No, so part of the other thing is we did look at actually taking this entire mass and dropping it a foot, which would increase grading by about 40 cubic yards or so. And it would bury it a little bit more in the site. But again, to Ryan's point right here, this is where that becomes really funny. And when we did that, it didn't become something that you would read except right at the top of the driveway anymore. And we wanted that engagement. And it felt proportionally based on the way that we had done it, that, the finished floors were that height difference and that little band above our flat foyer roof, since they were the same essentially, it felt appropriate. And that's, like I said, once we lowered that, we just didn't feel like it met. It just didn't feel the same.
staff.
And I know we're always fighting with mass, bulk, and scale, but just from a pure compositional viewpoint, I think we just also like repetition variation, right, is like a classic rule. And I just like, right now you see three forms. You have the original transom on the left, the long middle bar, and then kind of the last new note on the right, which is a little bit higher, but is balancing the longer bar. So just compositionally, it feels good to me.
Thank you. That's all I
Yeah.
have. Thanks.
Long answer.
All right, thank you. Board Member Brent Linger, do you have any questions, please?
I do, thank you. Could we go to A13, which is one of your elevations?
13, yeah.
And just a couple things here. One is, are the beams the same dimension on the addition compared to the original?
Yes.
They are, okay, great. Just from here, it almost looked like one was smaller, or the new one was smaller, but perfect. So the other question has to do with whether you did any night sky studies on the addition. You know, you've included the glass, well, it's got a lot of glass, period. And so I don't know where it's facing to know who will see that at night.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we haven't done any studies. I mean, I think we understand it. So we followed what the existing residence was doing. So I think you know the site, the road is behind this view.
Right.
And so as you saw, very solid view. And then both sides are pretty solid walls. They have more punched openings. So all of that glass previously and proposed is really facing the view, which is, you know, that island view. So again, we have that fan shape. So here's a good view of it. So
yeah.
wish we had a bigger context. So yeah, the existing residence is basically due south.
Sure.
That's all glass, essentially, and turning the corner. And then what we did is we turned, I mean, essentially that is all glass, fanned open to the southwest to the sunset view. And that, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, so then what is below to the southwest?
I wish we had, I mean, there's neighbors below, but you can see the sides of the lot, and the topography continues to drop. So that's a canyon view all the way down. What's below us?
You come down Sea Ranch down to Marina.
Marina. So
And it's a ways down
is
there,
it?
actually.
it's pretty far down.
Yeah.
The closest neighbor is just planned south of the existing residence that's under construction right now.
This is that big mega house
Yeah.
that's under construction right here.
Okay.
So
that's
other
that-
neighbors are behind, off to the side. So again, the next neighbors would be across the canyon.
Yeah, and the next house is over here.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're fairly pushed far off of the property line, and there's a big Italian cypress tree right here, which further helps that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein.
Yeah, just one question. All the planters, retaining walls, those are all existing to remain. You're not doing any new ones?
No.
And-
Well,
The one in the
let's
front.
go. There are a couple at our addition. All at the main house, those are all existing. The retaining walls, the stairs to remain. When we get to, let's just go to our additions.
There's the one up here, and then there's the two that are down here.
Go to maybe the site plan. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so all of those,
Sorry. One more. We got
and scroll down just a tiny bit too. All right, Ms. Klein, so everything in front of the existing resident, existing to remain, even that planter to the left, existing to remain. Again, we're going to be doing construction. Do some need to get repaired or rebuilt? Possibly, right? We don't know, but the owner's intent is to keep as much as possible. They enjoy it, they like it, so we didn't want to touch it. It has brick elements, match the brick chimney of the original house, so we kind of felt comfortable with all that. But then when we get to, that's our breezeway, so the kind of the planter elements as part of the breezeway, we're matching, and then if you move over to those two walls flanking that patio, will be new walls as well. Everything else facing south, there's no wall. It just goes to grade and then down.
Got it. And can you just speak to the heights of it? It seems like some areas, the highest would be 6 feet, like the
We-
existing.
Can we call out the walls there?
At the existing walls?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like
They'll show up in the sections.
they're
on-
actually taller on the existing side.
Yeah, I think you had like 6 feet max at the, but
I don't believe we're that tall, though.
494. There's about 3.5 foot difference from the patio down to here, and those walls pop up about 18 inches on the patio or so.
Can you go to that rendering view, that
Yeah,
south
sure.
view? I think is the best way to view that. Yeah, so this is that low point,
Right.
Katie, kind of here, just under our new breezeway is where, again, to the best of our ability of using existing grade, might that berm up a little more against the wall? Maybe. you
Yeah.
know, It's all pretty natural back there. And then you see at the new office, that lower level, it's low. I think those are like 42 inches. We wanted to keep those low.
This one is, and this one's 36.
That's even lower, yeah.
got it. Just follow up quick question. Are you going to be planting along the slope at all? New plantings?
So
with-
no, right now, we're proposing a landscape. We worked with civil and did grading and drainage, but the idea here was it's a fairly natural landscape. They're avid gardeners. They kind of wanted to just sort of adapt what was there. And so that was the request, especially like on the hillside. I mean, there's not much there, and then around on the front side as well. It's a little more landscaped, but
Mhm.
even in the front, we're just sort of omitting. We're not really redesigning any of that.
Great, thanks. Those are my only questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Show me the front entrance. Which I look at, this plan is looking at the roof, the front. Front entrance is on the north side of the house, right at the breezeway.
Yes, but that's a very interesting question because there's really two. So if you look at the floor plan first. So we actually had a lot of discussions with the owner about this. So if you look at the original house, let's zoom in there. So Sea Ranch is, to our left here. So that side elevation where you see that, I don't know if you can use the mouse, see that entry door? That's the actual front door to the original house.
We're over here.
So here on the side, this is a corner lot. You can see that, on the east side. So that's the actual front door. But it's like a quiet side. No one uses that street. Everyone uses, is it Campanile, the road above? The driveway approach, people arrive that way now. So now let's go to the new plan on the right.
I know.
So we went back and forth whether do we maintain that as the entry sequence, but it really requires people to journey all the way around the house. There's nowhere to park on Sea Ranch. So, and this was how we framed the whole addition. It's like, the new pavilion framing the view. So as you approach the house,
Now I see it.
yeah. So it's really,
53 is, there's the front door.
we've been calling it the breezeway. So it's really that low slung piece connecting these two.
You see it go up and down.
Yep, so you walk in, you're in the foyer, you see the view, it hits you. And then you have two choices. You kind of circulate left to the original house, which is really the public side. Or on the right, you could go up the stairs to the master wing, that kind of perched above, or down to the office and gym.
Apologies, Mr. Mills. Do you have your microphone on? I can't quite see if it's lit
Yes.
up. Okay. I think we were just having some comments from City TV about conflicting noise. So just for the board members, just remember to have your microphone on if you're speaking.
Okay, were all your questions answered? Okay, I have no questions at this time, so we'll move on to comments. So, Vice Chair Colossus, do you have any comments, please?
I have one more question and then I'll make comments.
Go for it.
Did you guys consider at all pulling the mass of the addition down so that did you look at whether the roof over the breezeway could correspond to the bottom of the transoms? Like, did you ever look at that? I know you're trying to keep that wood sort of separation, but I'm just like, was this ever considered? as a means of
I'm trying to
dropping it
remember,
down?
just what you're asking is, would we ever just continue the same level and only do an understory? I mentioned earlier, that's how that felt. Split level was always part of the conversation with the owner, just in terms of.
Yeah, I would drop it down
again,
too far.
the height also is just, the idea of kind of lifting up a little bit to grab that view is quite nice. And even just, again, less grading and not feeling like the lower level is a basement level. So that's,
Okay. I don't have any problem with the FAR. I think it's a large enough lot that it can take an 89% FAR. I think a lot of thought has gone into it. I think, it's compatible and consistent with the existing home. I would still like to see it hunker down, but I understand you're balancing the issue of grades, and you're trying to do that sensitively. So I'm generally in support of the project.
Okay, thank you. All right, Board Member Arakalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. Could we go to the old plans? Is that possible?
Good
Pete?
question.
I don't know. Yes. She gave it to me, yes. Where would you like to go?
There's a sheet A6. Yes. So if we can, zoom in on the addition. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So the question I asked earlier, my main concern was, right, like you mentioned that large wall, and I appreciate the fenestrations there. I think that's an improvement. I'm not sure about the placement of the fenestrations. I would like to hear what the other board members would like to say, but I feel like fenestrations are positive to that. But other than that, I believe I'm in support of Vice Chair Colos's comments. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I think that you've done a good job of really integrating the new extension with the old. I mean, it really looks like it was built at the same time, but it's not just, a total duplication. It's new, but it fits, and so congratulations on that. And so I think, I think the size, the scale, and the bulk of it are appropriate for, this size lot. And the quality of the materials looks great, so I'm in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, aesthetically, the mass, bulk, and scale feels appropriate in composition, like you said. And as Board Member Bretlinger said, it also feels like it was always there. And it's also significantly under the max height. There's no privacy issues, no public views impacted, and it fits well within the hillside. And as you mentioned, lowering the addition would increase grading, so I'm in support. And also, just to bring up the glass, I also am in support of the glass. There's no steel really in the design, and the intent of the design is to be very minimal, and it just feels right. Normally, I don't like glass, but for this project, it feels like it fits within the materials palette and the intent of the design in the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha.
Fenestration is very nice because it ties the addition in with the existing. Yeah, it falls way within our guidelines. And very nice, thank you.
Okay, I think the issue with the glass railings was answered. I guess my only follow-up was that the lantern effect with all those that glass big windows, but it appears to me, and my understanding is it's looking out at a vast open, like you're not really, right. It's like the perfect place to, if you're going to do a lantern effect, that's the place to do it. So yeah, okay, that's my only comment. So they're here for project design approval. If someone would like to draft a motion for project design approval, if that is something you feel that they're ready for, that would be great.
And Chair Miller, just as a reminder to the board, there's a couple findings. Ms. Gu, can you switch to the PowerPoint? Thank you. So if whoever is the motion maker will include the hillside design and slope lot findings. I'll next go to the grading findings and then the neighborhood preservation findings.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion for project design approval to come back to consent for final with the following findings and comments. That the project fits within the natural topography of the site, and the building mass, bulk, and scale fits within the neighborhood. And as I mentioned, the composition of the architecture, it feels like it was always there. As also mentioned, the grading is not significantly happening because of this addition, and the proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat. The project is also consistent in appearance with the neighborhood, is compatible in size, bulk, and scale. Quality architectural materials are being used, and many is being protected. No significant trees are being impacted. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The good neighbor guidelines are also followed, and no public views are being impacted.
And that concludes the findings. Just if you have any additional comments for your motion.
That we also support the glass railing as it works really well with the architecture.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Colossus,
Yes.
Board Member Arkelian,
Yes.
Board Member Brinkletter.
Yes.
Sorry. Lost my screen. Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Morticia.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And then
Thank you very
Chair
much.
Miller, if you can just announce the 10-day appeal period.
And there is a 10-day appeal period for your project. All right, thank you. Congratulations. Bye-bye.
Okay, perfect. So that's all set up. You can zoom in around the different pages. We're going to start on my screen.
I know. Kind of feels good, to be honest with you. It's a little more human. I like that.
Okay. We're on to item number 3. This is 857. No, I'm wrong. We're on to item number 4. We're on to 691 Hope Avenue. This is a new item for project design approval. Annexation of the County of Santa Barbara into the City of Santa Barbara General Plan Amendment, rezone, tentative subdivision map, and modification were approved by City Council on January 2020. Proposal to construct a new 2,427 square foot, two-story, single-unit residence at an attached with an attached 465 square foot garage on a lot 5 of the newly created 6-lot subdivision. The proposed total of 2,891 square feet on a 13,736 square foot lot is 84% of the maximum required floor-to-lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings and grading findings are required. So welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and show us your project.
Sure, thank you. I'm I'm Detlef Piker, principal with RRM Design Group.
I'm Julie Roth, senior architect at the RRM Design Group.
Welcome. You have no more speakers.
Hi, I'm Rachel Raynor with RRM Design Group, associate planner.
Thank you.
All right. You want us to go ahead with our presentation?
proceed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take out the star files.
You hate the.
I hate these stupid boxes.
You don't like the floating boxes.
Star files.
Thank
It's a star building. For sure.
Just waiting for an ad to pop up.
I know,
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, well, thank you for having us today. We're here this time for design approval for Lot 5 of the 6-lot subdivision. We're looking forward to any comments or questions you have. I just wanted to kind of explain that we took a very similar approach to what we did for Lot 6, having understood that that was a desirable direction. So we tried to really make this home, again, a more conventional home in appearance, but still maintain some of the contemporary kind of qualities. The rendering here, of course, it's a little misleading just because some elements of the building are at an angle, and you'll see that as we go around the building in elevation. But I want to start off just by having Rachel just summarize what some of the previous comments were and some of the changes that had been made over the course of time to get us to this particular point here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Deddy. I'm going to quickly overview the changes and then give it back to Deddy to outline the sheets that we've updated. So first off, since you last saw Lot 5, we have ensured that the building height, the maximum building height, is still below 25 feet. Just to note that the municipal code allows 30 feet for this zone. Another change with regard to the plate heights, the great room will have a plate height of 10 feet, while everywhere else on the ground floor will be 9. And then the second floor plate heights will be 8 feet. In previous designs, the plate height ranged or varied from 8 to 9 feet in height, so we just brought it to a consistent 8 feet on that second floor. Next change, just a comparison from the original conceptual design in October of 2020. The overall net area of the residence has been reduced from a 99.9% of the maximum FAR, or 3,451 square feet, to 83.8%, or 2,891 square feet. Next up, just with the building, the primary residence location on Lot 5, the proposed residence is set back approximately 33 feet 4 inches from the southern property line, 6 feet from the western property line, and 30 feet from the eastern property line.
Can we show the site plan? Oh, yeah, you're the one. I forgot. Oh, that's great for me.
The proposed residence was sited to retain the existing on-site oak tree in the southeast corner of the property, as well as plan for 2 mitigation oak trees on the property as well, with 1 mitigation oak tree up here in the northeast corner and another tucked away in this corner as well. We can also show the landscape plan with those as well, if that's helpful. The windows have been let me move to the elevations. The windows have been relocated and or reduced to avoid sightlines into adjacent properties to the west and south. Second-story windows on the south side have been reduced in size with higher windowsills to better address privacy concerns in the bedroom and bathroom along this elevation. The front entry door along the north elevation has also been revised to be a wood door instead of glass. Let me go back to the site plan. Just noting that the two-story residence has been placed closer to the northern portion of the lot to provide further space from the adjacent neighbor to the south. As requested for Lot 6, we provided an additional site section for Lot 5 to show the relative separations between the lot to the south, which is 3838 Connie Way, and to the north, Penn Place. And that's right here. Oops. Last but not least, the architectural style of the residence has been redesigned with a more modest and traditional ranch style consistent with the surrounding neighborhood while retaining the high quality appearance expected of a new home built to today's standards and preferences. The revised design does not clash with the neighborhood, and per guideline 28.c section 11, architectural style is not restricted to the existing neighborhood style, but rather it should be compatible with the neighborhood and consistently designed in high quality for the entire home exterior. The revised design is compatible with the neighborhood and was inspired by homes both in the Willow Glen and Grove neighborhoods and some immediately adjacent residences. Specific revisions in tonight's plan set include the use of traditional gable roof forms, reconsideration and reduction in size of glass elements, replacement of modern glass, entry doors with wood doors, and continued use of stone veneer in a more modest and traditional way. I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Detti to jump in a little bit more.
Thank you. And I think you stole a lot of my thunder by going through most of what I'm going to be going through, but nevertheless, we'll kind of walk through it. And if you would go back to sheet A4,
I'm
which is...
jealous, you get paper. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. We were wondering whether you wanted... But you got a nice new screen right there in front of you. Sheet 4 is the material board. It's just right, should be right at the beginning there. Oh, 4, sorry, not 4. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of underscore the fact that, again, we revised some of the materials, lighten the building up a little bit, and use the same sort of strategy that we used on Lot 6, you know, using similar materials and you know, creating more low-key use of the stone, the natural stone wall of the front, and then just that one little area by the entrance, a wood entrance door, and, you know, kind of reduced some of the glass areas, et cetera. So if we go back to the site plan, which I think is the next couple of sheets, or there we go. Yeah, the one thing that's unique about this house, of course, is the shape of the lot due to the cul-de-sac. So we've got a lot of front yard setback that we had to kind of deal with and you know, kind of compress the house around that setback. You can see that the garage, we're locating it separately from the main house, but it's connected by way of a breezeway there that is primarily like a deck for the master bedroom. And we'll see that in the next level floor plan. So there you see the garage and the sort of kind of breezeway connection there. An entrance. The floor plan really hasn't changed from what we had previously. Most of our work had to do with the windows and the roofs and things like that. Next, here you can see that the actual the second story element is a relatively small part of the overall footprint of the house, kind of just contained within the master bedroom, a couple of additional bedrooms. And you can see how the roof slopes there, but if you go to the next slide, we'll see the, okay. So here, you can see what we had originally was quite a bit more contemporary. Again, like Lot 6, we were using kind of interacting shed roofs in different ways and a little more glass up front there. But you know, a lot of the mass of the house is similar to what it is now. But so you could see those two elevations. If we go to the next slide, you'll see how we've kind of taken that and transformed it into something that's a little more conventional looking, especially when you look from the street. That portion of the house, a great room, is just a single story element. We do have a 10-foot plate there, but that doesn't, you know, that's just a single story portion of it. The remainder of the house is similar to what we did before, 9-foot plates on the ground floor, and then 8-foot plates at the second floor. And with the sloped roofs, we're able to achieve a little bit of volume in some of those bedrooms. And just as a matter of note, the eave height for the 2-story element is actually only about 18 feet, so above grade. So it's really pretty low for a 2-story. Here you see the north elevation. Again, it's interesting because some of the elements are at an angle, but you can see how we took that center portion of the roof, which is a relatively small, or maybe 2/3 of or half of the overall second story. It is a little bit taller than what we had before. I think we had that at about around 22 feet, but that was just because of the way we had very, very low sloped shed roofs, and in this case, we're going with a little more conventional slope on the roof, which meant that we had to bring it up. The peak, the only one area, the peak of that roof is, I think it's just below 25 feet, 24'4", but it's a long way from any of the neighboring properties. So again, the eave height, I think, is what really, is the most impactful in terms of neighbors. So again, previous design. And now we're onto the south elevation there. Again, you can see where the eave height is around 18 feet. We have some windows that do face towards the south. They are only, the 2 windows on either end of that series are windows for the bedrooms to provide cross ventilation. And they have a high sill height, as they all do. And then the other ones are, one is into the water closet room, the other one is to the bath, over the bathtub in that room. So, again, some of those changes were made in response to trying to provide more sense of privacy. And we're perfectly willing to make those obscure glass if that's something that, makes any difference to anybody. And then here we have, which elevation is that? The west elevation. Yeah, and again, here you really get to read the sort of very much more traditional forms of the house, which, we're very pleased with it. I think, with all your comments and everything, it kind of led us to this. And, at the end of the day, I think our client and we are, pleased with how it's come out. So I think it's still a very, very nice house and still has some of what we're trying to achieve in terms of that kind of more contemporary feeling to it. I think that's probably, we're going to go through some sections, yeah. Oh, yeah, the roof, go back one, just in case you wanted to see the roof plan. It just gives you a sense of how the roofs are sloped and where that higher portion of the roof is. And that one higher ridge line where the section cuts through. And if you slide it down a little bit, see the section in the other direction, across the site. Then go down to the next one, which you've already seen, which is just a section just showing how it relates to the neighboring property on Connie Way to the south, which is, in this particular case, a 2-story house. And you can see the distance we are back from the property line with the main 2-story mass. I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know if I missed anything. Did I miss anything? No? Okay. Yeah, we look forward to any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Did we have any public comment?
We received about 6 written comments regarding this particular item. I don't know if you want me to state
They were
the names.
they
or-
were just distributed in advance of the meeting.
Okay, great.
Ms. Kennedy, did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay, thank you. Is there, I don't see anyone in the room.
I see one person. Or do you have any public comment on this particular item? No? Thank you.
Okay, moving it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
I just have one question. Shame on me. I just have one question. Can we look in plan, and if you could just articulate to me exactly which walls are getting the sandstone cladding that are on the house? I know it's right near the entry.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand. It looks like one of those walls comes out, maybe returns or comes out and then.
So it's that wall where you see the front door,
Mhm.
and then as it wraps around the corner of that wall. So we're just taking that piece of the building, that mass, and cladding it with stone and wrapping it around the corner to tie back to the element adjacent.
Okay, so it's the wall that runs up and down on the page where the front door is,
Yes.
and then it turns left and returns back to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Towards the, going towards the.
Okay, but it terminates at the interior corner at the bottom of that wall where the door is.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ari Kelly, do you have any questions, please?
I do, just one. I'm on page 12 of the PDF, sheet A5-4. The view below, the bottom view, yes. So the two on the first floor, the blue. So the two glazing units on the far left on the first floor, are those are full height fixed windows? Is that right?
You can see the ones that are divided up into the three mullions there. Those are, going to be sliding glass windows. Again, this really addresses a lot of the preference. The other two windows, I believe, are fixed windows, just
Full
for
height.
purposes of light. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, just as a quick question, the upstairs window there, that's fixed too? Just to follow up what you just asked.
I was wondering that myself. Can you address that?
Yeah.
Go to the
That
floor.
one, yes. Is that fixed?
No. Oh, wait a sec.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, I believe that is meant to be.
Well, that should be a sliding window.
Is that this
Oh,
one?
sliding?
Oh, wait, the one out, wait, excuse me, that's the one above the entry? Or are you talking about?
the east elevation.
Geez, that one,
Okay, so
that one.
that one right there is this one right here.
Yeah.
That should be a sliding window.
So it has no mullions.
It would have it would have a mullion.
It would have a
Yeah,
center
it would be a
mullion.
sliding.
Got it. Okay,
sliding
thank you.
window.
Yeah. that
All
should
right.
be a center.
Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any questions, please?
I do. One is a clarification of the plan here. I'm looking exactly on the same page here, on the right side, just next to the garage. Oops, stop right there. Thank you. Is that a breezeway
Yes.
next to the, okay. I was
Yeah.
having
That's-
trouble
Yeah.
with the plans because it
Yeah.
there was no roof on it on some and some there was.
Yeah, it's a breezeway, and it also serves as a deck off the
I
master
got it.
bedroom as well.
Okay, thank you. And then, in response to a couple of the letters that we got, could we look at the landscaping plan, L1? Great. One of the letters mentioned existing trees on the south side of the property and that they were not going to be retained. I see one here that is an existing oak tree. Is that in fact the only one that is being retained, or are there others to begin with?
Can you answer that?
Yeah, I'll take it. So correct, the current trees, the existing trees are not being shown right now, but we do have that drainage basin on that parallels the southern property line. And so if we needed to retain them, I think we could try and work with the property owner to do that.
I'm sorry, you could do what with a property owner?
Well, I think what she's saying is that there's a 10-foot drainage easement on that,
Right.
along that entire south side of all the lots. And we obviously are going to have to cultivate it, so to speak, to make it drain properly. And there may be some vegetation in there that we may have to remove, and then we'll be replacing it with new vegetation. And I maybe unclear exactly what, if
Yeah.
any, we'll be able to retain in the process of grading that properly. But if that was a concern of the neighbor, we'd be happy to work with.
Yeah, I think it sounds like the concern of the neighbor was a privacy issue as much as anything, which was a combination of what landscape buffer might be there, as well as what's visible from the upper or the second floor windows down into the backyard on to the south. And just wonder if you could address that.
I think currently the existing oak tree is the only existing vegetation or tree that actually provides screening. From my recollection out on the property, the area where the accent palms are located on the site plan, keynote number 12, it was more so a bush that did not exceed the height of the existing fence line.
Okay.
So the existing landscaping isn't really currently providing a privacy buffer at this time.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, just one. Can you point out the swale? I see call out 3, but can you just kind of guide me where the swale is?
So it's the full length of the southern property line, and it's 10 feet from the property line outwards in the northern direction.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. That's all for me.
I can bring it up on the technical site plan. It shows it better on that one. No, it's not the.
Good idea, though. I like that. Don't want to waste water. It's a.
So on this particular property, we have the drainage and sanitary sewer easement right here, 15 feet from the PL.
Oh, it's there.
And then it's also, there's another one. Yeah, sorry.
It goes through all the properties.
Yeah. It's a 10-foot wide easement. Well, it's picked up. We have to go to the drainage plan.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm kind of lost track where we're at. Were you finished, complete, or?
That was it for me, but I think I would like to ask another question about the swale. Is it concrete or does it have? Okay,
It's a natural swale.
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. You have a section too that might be helpful. I saw.
Okay, Board Member Motisha, do you want to follow? Any questions?
The house is basically facing, no, I had it in a different position, but I understand it now. No, I don't have any questions. I think it's straightforward. No, I'll make some comments, but.
I had one.
Sure, go ahead.
I have one more question for
Sure.
you. You brought up the drainage plan. Could you just walk us through that?
Yeah.
Well, my follow-up question, what stormwater management tier level are you at, required for this project?
It's tier 3.
Tier 3, okay.
So that's the max, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to follow up on that, so, to kind of address what the neighbors have been.
Yep.
So is that it?
Well, I'd still like to understand it. We don't
Sure.
have to go into great detail,
Do
but
we have this, the grading and drainage plan? Oh, you have it up on the screen. Perfect, yeah.
Oh.
You can see that there's an inlet approximately in the middle of the screen right there. And this is a part of the overall drainage improvements that are part of the approved subdivision plan and grading and drainage plan. This is now in construction document phase. And our civil engineers are working with city staff to refine all the final details of the drainage system. But you can see where there's a line there that's initialed SD for storm drain, and that's coming from the northern side of our property where there is a channel. And we're taking drainage from that channel through this storm drain to an existing storm drain line that flows through the neighboring property there out to Connie Way. So we're just improving that whole drainage situation. We're picking up drainage from the drainage swale. You can see it contoured there, and dropping it into that inlet. And that happens towards the east side until you get to a high point, at which point the water is then flowing out to Hope on that side, to a
Okay.
storm drain on Hope. So that's the overall concept for the drainage.
All right, thank you.
Okay, yeah, my question was to stormwater management was tier 3, so I got, now that I know, I understand that, I wanted, when I go to comments, I'll address that. So I'm going to bring it back to the board for comments. So Vice Chair Colas, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I do. One is, I'd like to understand how, and it sounded like some of this still needs to be fleshed out, but I'm trying to understand how we're going to retain a native oak in a drainage swale area. And maybe Ms. Klein could speak to that a little bit more, but I mean, I know oaks can handle a certain amount of water in transient conditions, but generally they sort of like to be starved, or they can have root rot, right? So I'm just trying to understand whether that's inconsistent or how we're really going to retain that oak and yet have the drainage swale there. So I guess I would just say that merits more study and some explanation. And then the other comment that I have is related to the use of materials generally on the exterior. Maybe we could look at the front elevation quickly. So I really like the fact that you're using different materials, and some of them are very traditional in terms of the horizontal siding, and that you have been selective in your use of the sandstone. I may say something that's a little bit contrary to previous comments, but I feel like the entry area is busy with texture, and then everything around it is kind of plain. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to, like if there's an opportunity or if there's been study done of the location of those elements where there's more texture. And on this particular project, because you have this breezeway, I'm wondering if the sandstone wouldn't better be served on the breezeway element. I just, it's a question I'm asking myself, and I guess I would recommend that it be studied and looked at as an opportunity to maybe balance some of the texture versus some of the more simpler plaster elements on the facade. Those are my only comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arakalian.
Yeah, I have comments. So I believe the step back massing from street view, the breezeway, the proposed plate heights and proposed materials are aesthetically appropriate. Strongly believe the proposed roof and the pitches are compatible with the neighborhood. I believe the proposed pitched overhang along the south elevation is aesthetically appropriate, more than a flat metal overhang. And I believe the project is ready for PDA. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any comments, please?
I do, thank you. Kind of along the same vein, I appreciate how you've addressed the massing by both moving the structure away from the southern boundary and reducing the second-story footprint to really, probably half of what the first floor is. So from that standpoint, I think you've addressed the bulk and scale of the project. And I do agree that the materials seem to be high quality and appropriate. So I would support the project.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I would agree. I think the mass bulk and scale changes are appropriate and a nice improvement, as well as the materials are high quality and fit within the neighborhood. To talk to your oak comment, it's established. The swale has drainage that is moving in the water flow, so I don't see a huge problem with that. And like I said, it's established. But I would reconsider the palms in the swale and replace that with more of a screen tree to provide more screening for the neighbor, and also palms aren't usually appropriate for swales as well. And that's all. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I have some reservations about the breezeway in the deck. Just, you look at the north elevation?
Looks what?
Let's look at the north elevation.
Okay, sorry.
Board Member Motisha, can you turn on your microphone? Thank
It
you.
is on, I'm just not
Yep.
talking to it. I like the mass bulk and scale of the whole house. You've really done wonders of changing it into a house that's more compatible with the neighborhood, and I'm sure all three streets, north, west, and south, will agree with you because they're not here. But I think the breezeway in the is kind of a overfocal point for the. I'm not asking you to definitely take it away, but it's different than the rest of the house, and it just draws my attention right there. And
Can you scroll down to the elevation showing the front of the debris? But there you go.
yeah, right there. I see a potential, and I know it's not on the drawings, and you've not intended it to be, but I see a potential something in the future there with no privacy on that deck. The deck is basically a major structural part of that house, and it looks like, if you look at all sides of it, it looks like the garage was kind of added to it there because it doesn't fit. The roof doesn't. Roof just falls away. And I'm just expressing my that doesn't really. There's something about it that doesn't fit the nice size, bulk, and scale. There's a bulk, not size and scale, but bulk of the house in that location right there, and it takes away from the rest of the house. The rest of the house is thin mullions, fixed glass, and all of a sudden we end up with a box right there that's my comments.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
I think I was struggling with the breezeway too, and I think my comment about the sandstone was probably born of that, and I think you've helped articulate that. I don't know exactly, and I'm not looking at a plan view right now, but I don't know exactly where you'd be exiting from the house to get, maybe we could look at that. Maybe on the first floor? Okay.
Yeah, so you can see.
Right, I'm
there's-
just not sure where you were exiting the house. I can see it now.
Yeah. So
I
there's-
get, yeah.
It does have an awkward feel to it.
I guess what I'm trying to look at is whether there's an opportunity when you look at the front elevation to carry the roof line or a portion or some roof line from the garage
Go back to the
over.
Second floor plan. Second floor plan. I think that's where you can see what's going on.
Right.
You could go-
If that deck were limited, so let's say, I don't know what grid line that is, but let's say the front wall of the master bedroom, if the deck stopped at that location, it might provide an opportunity to carry the roof line from the garage through in front of the breezeway. And I think that would help tie the garage together with the residents a little bit better if we look at the front elevation. So if there's a way to bring the roof line of the garage over to the left and have it kind of lap over the breezeway or become more integral with the breezeway, it might address, I think, Mr. Motich's concern and part of what I think I was trying to address in terms of.
It would give it more opportunity to address the rock that is only being addressed at one place, the entry.
Yeah,
And it could be located.
that mass does feel a little incongruent with the rest of the house. And if there's some relationship with roof lines, I think it might help.
May I respond?
Sure.
Thanks. I think that's a good suggestion. We'll certainly
Study it.
take a look at that. I think, I personally, I like the element. I like the juxtaposition with the rest of the masses. But, if the idea is to kind of make that more low-key, I think, it seems like we ought to be able to make it work to pull that across. And if you want to make that a condition of the approval, that's fine with me. I have no problem with that.
Well, it's my turn to talk, so I'm
Oh,
going to
yeah,
talk.
we still have you. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Please.
kidding. So, just to follow up what they were saying, I think it's something to study. They're giving you ideas. They're like, and like I would just add like the way the garage door kind of has a sight on one side, on the right side, looking at it, but on the other side, it abruptly hits that breezeway. So there's even like it's something to look at. So
Yeah,
it's
sure.
a little more in balance. The only thing I really want to comment about, and by the way, I think what you did was great. I absolutely love what you did. I think you put a lot of thought and concern, and I'm very, very happy. I would like to see a little more accurate drawing of the mullions of how the windows actually occur. I think that'll really make an impact. Are you going to have downspouts, by the way? So that should be added. I think that would be kind of a critical component as well. Several people have sent us letters regarding the stormwater management. And Ms. Kennedy, could you clarify exactly the contractual agreement is? Because they were Tier 3, which is the most stringent level of stormwater management. And a lot of neighbors were concerned about flooding and that they won't follow through. And, there's a lot of shenanigans that may happen. But they have a specific contract that they have to sign and agree with. Can you kind of explain what that is?
Well, yes, they are required to follow the conditions of approval for this project too. This subdivision project that went through was approved, so there was a drainage plan associated with that. And then each separate lot has to conform to this Tier 3 as well for each lot. So it's a requirement to move forward when it goes through building permit processing.
Is there an HOA involved with this development?
There will be an HOA.
Yeah, so that
Deal
will,
with
yeah, so
some
there'll be
minor-
CC&Rs involved in the requirement that the maintenance of probably all of that will have to be addressed, so. Anyway, and I brought it's rather comprehensive, and I really encourage people who watch this to go online and look at the stormwater management program that Santa Barbara has, and, because it is very comprehensive. So those were my only comments, so if someone.
I have one more
Sure, go
comment,
ahead.
if I could.
Please.
Following up on the vice chair's suggestion about the breezeway, one way of looking at it could be to actually reorient it so it's pushed back and the plane of the garage is in front of the breezeway instead of behind it. That would take some reorientation of the deck, but it would not make the breezeway so prominent in the way it is out in front with a broader wall plane. So something else for you to study.
Things to ponder. So they're here for project design approval. If someone would like to entertain a motion with the conditions that have been spoken, would someone like to do that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I'd like to make a motion that the project be given, I'm struggling whether I want to give it or not.
Okay.
I'd like to I'd like to make a proposal that the project be given design approval with the following conditions: that the applicant return with an accurate representation of the mullions and windows, that downspouts be illustrated on the exterior elevations and on the floor plans, that the applicant study the mass and come back with a proposal for resolving what feels like some disparity in the breezeway element with the rest of the residents. Recommendations given were to possibly push back the front wall line so that it sits behind the front wall of the garage, and to look at different types of materials for that element. That the palm trees on the southerly property line be replaced with an alternate type of tree that is more consistent with the future swale use in that area. And that, do we have color boards and material boards?
There's a color material in the package.
Okay. I think that's it.
And then Board Member Collas, Vice Chair Collas, can you include the findings for project design approval? There's grading and then neighborhood preservation.
Based on the fact that the project's a Tier 3 project and that the conditions of the project require that it adopt the conditions of the subdivision, is that correct? Is that accurate? Okay. The grading findings can be made that there will not be any significant increase in siltation or a decrease in water quality of natural drainage courses, and that the proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat. The project is consistent in appearance and compatibility with the neighborhood. Specifically, we have seen a change in the nature of the roof lines to a more traditional roof line. The second floor has been decreased in square footage, and the residence is well below the allowable height limitations. Quality architectural materials are being used. The sandstone is being used in a traditional and appropriate manner. And the specimen oak on the south property line is being retained.
And then just a couple more.
We don't see any detrimental issue with health, safety, and welfare. And the applicant has been interactive with the neighbors on this project, and we do not see an impediment to any public views. There are no public views that are affected by this project that we know of.
All right, thank you. And I believe Mr. Motisha seconded.
Now we'll second it.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
May I ask one thing
sure.
to be added? For the mullions to be shown on the elevations?
She already mentioned that.
Okay.
That's my first item, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Collas,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Mutisha.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
2 down.
And Chair Miller, can you announce the appeal period?
Oh, yes, and there is a 10-day appeal period.
Thank you. I'm aware of that.
Thank you. I believe that's the last on our agenda, so I'm going to conclude the Single Family Design Board for April 25th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.